man was the final boss, hidden in the deepest part of the tower. He possessed power that almost no one could stand against. Whether it was an agent of the gods, a famous sword saint, or even a short-tempered little girl, none of them had ever truly defeated this man. In the end, they could only fall beneath his blade. But because his strength was so overwhelming, the man slowly began to feel a boredom he could not shake off. Or rather, it was closer to loneliness. The massive door before him was like a prison, trapping him inside the tower. At last, Baphomet could no longer endure being trapped. He slammed his fists into the door again and again, almost like a beast gone mad. He longed to see the world beyond the tower, yet the door remained completely untouched. Just as Baphomet was sinking into despair, an unfamiliar ringtone suddenly echoed out of nowhere. The object looked like something humans would use as a toy. To figure out what it was, Baphomet did not immediately kill the next challenger who entered the tower. To survive, the challenger had no choice but to swallow his fear and satisfy the monster's empty curiosity. Though deeply unwilling, he still explained the object to him. And because of that, Baphomet came into contact with many things from the human world for the first time. During the lesson, Baphomet's attention was almost completely stolen by the phone. Seeing an opening, the challenger tried to launch a sneak attack and force his way through the tower. But Baphomet only waved his hand with casual indifference. The next second, he was reduced to a bloody smear. From that day on, Baphomet began deliberately collecting all kinds of human toys. Yet, the more he touched them, the more he yearned for the human world he had never seen. In the human world, there was a superstition that if you prayed sincerely, the gods would answer your wish. Baphomet actually believed it, so he sat on the ground and prayed in silence, hoping that one day he could leave the tower. But superstition was still just superstition. As time passed, the loneliness in his heart only grew deeper. Until today, when a new toy finally appeared inside the tower, this person's power was completely different from all the useless challengers before him, and it stirred something in Baphomet that he had never felt before. Soon, the two of them clashed head-on. The instant their blades collided, Rave used the force of the impact to launch himself into the air, landing right behind Baphomet. Then he gathered blazing blue flames and unleashed a brutal quick-draw slash. But Baphomet smiled because he could feel it. This toy was exactly the perfect prize he had been searching for. With a thunderous boom, blue smoke exploded through the air. When the smoke cleared, Baphomet's passive shield finally revealed itself for the first time. Facing an enemy this powerful, Baphomet stopped holding back and activated his final form. Then he charged forward again, throwing himself into a deadly fight with Rave. In Baphomet's mind, Rave was strong. But no matter how strong he was still only a toy. How could a toy ever defeat its owner? In the middle of the battle, a voice suddenly rang beside his ear. Even if you beat him, so what? You still can't escape this place. And in that exact instant, Rave finished charging his ultimate attack. Baphomet had no time to react, and the sword pierced straight through his chest. At that moment, as he stared into Rave's eyes, Baphomet finally understood. This was no toy at all. This was the kind of human he had always longed for. Someone free and powerful. What was this feeling? Was it frustration? In a daze, a red system window suddenly appeared. It said, "Kill the hunter Rave, and your desire will be fulfilled." Desire. That was right. He still had desire. So what if his body was already burning away? He was the final boss of the tower, Baphomet. With that thought, Baphomet's overwhelming will drove him to launch one final attack. His foot tore straight through Rave's body. After that, Baphomet's consciousness completely faded away. When he opened his eyes again, the world before him was bright and dazzling. Had he escaped the tower? Or had he truly become human? Hunters were people capable of entering spatial gates and fighting the monsters that existed inside the towers. At first, hunters did not hold much status until that incident happened. A gate impact occurred when a tower, if left alone for too long, would release monsters through a spatial gate. On that day, 1/3 of humanity was wiped out. Only then did people realize how important hunters were, and they began training them on a massive scale. As for Baphomet, he was the lord of the Abyss Tower, the monster who had taken more hunters' lives than anyone in history, and the being who had been fascinated by humans enough to choose to become one himself. Once, he truly had been that powerful. But after becoming human, Baphomet seemed to have lost all his strength. Countless media outlets rushed to report that the hunter who cleared the Abyss Tower was actually a powerless fraud. Just like that, Baphomet lost every bit of his reputation. To the world, he became the greatest scammer of all time. The Lord of the Tower had been reduced to an idol of the underground world. In other words, he became the boss of a dungeon quarry. As for how Baphomet ended up in that quarry, it all started with a quack doctor. After getting badly injured during a strength test, Baphomet had no money to pay for treatment, so the doctor gave him one suggestion: repay the debt with his body. By the time Baphomet came back to his senses, he was already standing inside the quarry, forced to make money for that quack. At first, Baphomet was not exactly welcomed there, but that was fine. After all, there were very few problems a fist could not solve. From then on, more and more people came to challenge him, and more people were beaten into submission. Before he knew it, Baphomet had gathered a whole crowd of lackeys around him, and just like that, Baphomet eventually became the boss of the entire quarry. After enough time passed, even Baphomet started wondering if he had somehow wandered into the wrong story. His real desire was supposed to be becoming a powerful and handsome human like Rave. So what was this miserable stray dog life supposed to be? Then again, maybe his current life was not so bad. It was no longer boring, and he even had a bunch of underlings who loved flattering him. This was a feeling he had never experienced during his 1,000 years inside the tower. But then, a sudden explosion shattered the peace of Baphomet's strangely pleasant new life. After the blast, Baphomet touched the bloodstains on the ground. His heart pounded violently, and his sealed memories began to loosen again. Haha. Looks like another toy broke. In the next second, endless rage erupted from within him. He had been having fun. So who was it? Which bastard did this? That intense emotion immediately caught the attention of a certain existence. Meanwhile, on the other side, one of the quarry workers was wearing a wicked smile. Two C-rank hunters quickly sensed that the man in front of them might be the legendary Tomb Raider hunter. The Tomb Raider hunter smiled faintly and said, "Congratulations, you're half right. Your reward is a guillotine." The moment he finished speaking, his sword had already severed the man's head. Then, he swung again, cutting through the woman's lower leg and robbing her of the ability to move. With that done, the man raised his hand. In an instant, several more Tomb Raider hunters walked out of a crude portal. The man slowly crouched down. Want to know the other half of the answer? We're not Tomb Raider hunters. We're bandits disguised as them. The woman completely lost her composure, because she knew exactly what would happen if she fell into their hands. She would be cut apart and sold for money. At that moment, she desperately wished someone would come save her. The man turned his back to her and mocked, "You think someone will actually come save you just because you scream yourself hoarse?" But before he could finish, two screams suddenly rang out from his teammates. Baphomet had arrived. Which bastard did this? The instant his roar exploded, the red system window appeared once more. Ding! Hidden task completed. Grow angry for humanity. Reward, the power you seek. After seeing that message, Baphomet finally regained a little of his calm. Which filthy bug had broken his toy? As soon as the words left his mouth, Baphomet picked up someone else's bound item nearby. Normally, when someone used another person's bound item, its performance would drop straight to 0%. It would be so useless it could barely cut paper. But Baphomet had once been the Lord of the Tower. He had already mastered countless weapons, which automatically unlocked his passive skill, Weapon Master, allowing him to forcibly seize and use other people's weapons. With a weapon in hand, Baphomet's strength surged, and he wiped out the bandits' underlings with ease. Then his vicious gaze locked on to the man in front of him. The man gave a wicked smile. After watching the battle just now, he already had a rough idea of Baphomet's current strength. Above C rank but below B rank. Against a hunter like that, his own B rank power should be more than enough to crush him. And at first, things really did go exactly as he expected. With his speed, the man was able to injure Baphomet, but the moment Baphomet activated his passive skill, Berserk, everything changed. Berserk would activate when his body suffered heavy bleeding. Once triggered, all of Baphomet's stats increased by 15%. In other words, he now had B rank power, enough to crush the man right back. The man froze under that sudden pressure. In that moment, Baphomet no longer felt human to him. He felt like a monster wearing human skin. Before the man could even process it, one of his arms had already been severed. Baphomet spoke coldly. "This arm is what you owe the guy who charged in first." Then he swung again, and the man's other arm was cut off as well. "This one is what you owe the quiet guy who barely ever spoke." Another slash followed, and the man's left leg was severed. "This left leg is what you owe the fat guy who brought me food every day." By now, the man had completely lost all of his earlier arrogance. His whole body trembled as he begged Baphomet for forgiveness. But all that answered him was another merciless swing of Baphomet's sword. "This leg is what you owe the car-loving girl who liked sucking up to me." and the final strike is the price for making me angry. The man knew there was no way out, so he stopped begging and used the last of his strength to spit out one final insult. You're seriously insane. Baphomet ignored him completely. His sword fell, and the man's head was cut off. Feeling warm blood again, Baphomet's killing intent began to spiral out of control. This feeling is so familiar. Humans. I need humans. Ding. Due to the activation of the passive skill Berserk, Baphomet has entered a frenzied state with an urge to kill humans. Through his blurred consciousness, the C-rank hunter behind him let out a cry of pain. And, unfortunately, for her, she had run straight into Baphomet while he was under the side effect of Berserk. Looking at the woman lying on the ground, barely alive, only 2 words remained in Baphomet's mind. Kill her. Just as Baphomet was about to strike, the rescue team finally arrived at the scene. Faced with so many living humans, Baphomet instinctively turned his attention toward them and attacked without hesitation. But then, a hand suddenly reached out from the void, along with a calm voice. I went through so much trouble to bring you back to life. You can't just get yourself killed now. Sleep for a while. As soon as the voice faded, that hand flicked a finger. Baphomet instantly lost consciousness. His body collapsed to the ground. In his dream, Rave appeared behind Baphomet and drove a sword straight through his chest. When you ruled the tower, you probably never realized it, did you? Deep down, you were always a coward, and cowards only have one ending: destruction. The dream ended there, and Baphomet jolted awake. He stared blankly at the unfamiliar surroundings. Where was this? He was supposed to be at the quarry. But before he could finish speaking, a voice from the broadcast interrupted him. You're awake? Can you hear me, Mr. World's Greatest Scammer? I knew you looked familiar. So you're that kind of fraud. What I'm more curious about is this. How did someone like you manage to kill the hunter we were chasing? Baphomet looked completely confused. Kill? Was he talking about the guy Baphomet had torn apart? The voice over the broadcast continued. I looked into your information and found something very strange. Your name and identity are both unknown, almost as if you appeared out of nowhere. Someone with your level of power shouldn't be a nobody. So tell me, what exactly are you? Depending on your answer, I'll decide what to do with you. Before the voice could finish, Baphomet threw a punch, and the force was so overwhelming that it shattered the bulletproof glass. You've been running your mouth since earlier. Why do you have so many questions? If you want to know who I am, then you should introduce yourself first. That's called manners, you lowlife. You think I wanted to be called a fraud? You people were the ones who randomly made me out to be some hero. And that hunter? Yeah, I killed him. So what? Am I supposed to feel sorry? You want to know why I did it? Simple. That bastard pissed me off. So listen carefully. No matter who it is, if anyone dares to offend me, I'll make sure they understand what true despair looks like. The man behind the glass finally burst out laughing. Then he activated a mechanism and said, Are you sure you can really kill me? I've shown myself now, so what are you going to do next? The moment Baphomet saw the man's face, a strange feeling rose inside him. It felt just like the first time he had met Rave. In an instant, Baphomet lunged forward, trying to strangle the man to death. But after just one move, the man twisted his arm behind his back and slammed him to the floor, leaving him completely unable to move. The man finally introduced himself. We are Rogue, an upper-level guild formed in secret to stop criminal hunters. Don't panic. We won't hold you responsible. In fact, we want to invite you to join us. Rogue is very satisfied with your strength. So lend that dangerous talent of yours to Rogue. A few days later, at the Hunter Group Management Headquarters, Baphomet arrived in disguise, ready to officially register as a hunter. The receptionist first checked his identity and confirmed whether he had any criminal record. Ma-sun had already arranged everything in advance, so Baphomet passed the review without any trouble. Then the receptionist asked Baphomet to come up with a hunter codename. Ma-sun had specifically warned him about this. He had to keep it low-key. After all, once he registered as a hunter, there would be plenty of secret work to handle. Baphomet only gave a faint smile. Heh. My codename is Baphomet. A few days later, Baphomet entered a forest to carry out a secret mission. The target was a rampaging werewolf. The werewolf tried to end the fight quickly, from the very beginning. But Baphomet calmly raised a hand to stop it because he wanted to test something first. Then, Baphomet slowly lifted his hand. He shouted, "Come out." But the air around him remained painfully silent. So silent, it was almost embarrassing to watch. The werewolf snapped back to its senses and immediately swung a claw at him. Baphomet reacted instantly, throwing a punch before the attack could land. In a single moment, the werewolf's abdomen was punched straight through, and blood burst out like fireworks. Mission complete. Baphomet walked out of the portal. He clenched his hand. His strength had recovered a little, but only a little. It was not even 1/10,000,000th of what he had at his peak. It seemed he needed to keep completing this Grow Angry for Humanity mission. As he was thinking, a figure suddenly appeared behind him and said in a low voice, "So you're that Baphomet." Those words startled Baphomet slightly, and he turned around at once. To his surprise, the person standing there was Ma Sung-un. Ma Sung-un snapped at him. "Didn't I tell you to choose a low-key name? Do you have any idea what that name represents?" Baphomet simply turned his head away, clearly not interested in listening to Ma Sung-un nag. Seeing that indifferent attitude, Ma Sung-un felt a deep wave of helplessness. In the end, he could only tell Baphomet to come to Jeju City in a few days. A few days later, in Jeju City, Baphomet arrived with Ma Sung-un's assistant, Dae-young. The place had a vast, endless sea, and people of many different skin tones from all kinds of backgrounds. To Baphomet, everything felt completely new, so his interactions with people were stiff, awkward, and filled with curiosity. Luckily, Dae-young dragged him away in time and prevented a misunderstanding. After a moment, Dae-young explained the situation. Simply put, the reason they were here was for targeted guidance for new hunters. As she explained, Dae-young handed Baphomet a smartphone and an ID card. The name on the ID card was Chom Young. It was a fake identity, forged by their female superior, and from now on, it belonged to Baphomet. After handing everything over, Dae-young pointed toward the door behind her, signaling that Baphomet should go inside. Baphomet felt a little confused. Why wasn't Dae-young going in with him? After all, she had clearly been said to keep an eye on him. It wasn't until he entered the venue and the surrounding noise reached his ears that Baphomet realized who the man was. He was Rave's younger brother, Graven, the youngest A-rank hunter in history. Bang Ji-hwan shook off Graven's hand in disgust and snapped. "You heard Baphomet's name, and you're still defending him?" Graven replied calmly, "I think he was right. If Baphomet had been dealt with faster back then, my brother might have cleared the tower alive." Bang Ji-hwan still wanted to argue, but Ma Sung-un finally stepped forward. After a brief explanation from him, the group finally let the matter drop for the moment. By evening, the senior sparring match everyone had been waiting for finally began. The first ones to step out for a warm-up were Leoin hunter Bang Ji-hwan and Hunter Graven, both elite hunters. After several exchanges, Bang Ji-hwan quickly figured out Graven's weakness. His attack motions were too wide, a clear sign of lacking experience. Because of that, Bang Ji-hwan thought winning this match should be easy. But right as he had that thought, Graven suddenly vanished from where he stood and flashed behind him. With one elbow strike, Graven cleanly snatched Bang Ji-hwan's pouch and won the match. Bang Ji-hwan was clearly not happy about it, but a loss was a loss. So he asked Graven who he wanted to fight next. Graven's face turned cold as he shouted a single name. Baphomet, who had been watching the drama from the back row, froze on the spot. How did he end up getting dragged into this? Bang Ji-hwan was just as stunned. An A-rank hunter challenging a brand new hunter by name? Was this supposed to be a joke? Even the referee beside them wanted Graven to think it over. But Ma Sung-un, watching from above, found the whole thing rather interesting and approved the duel. Baphomet knew exactly what Ma Sung-un was thinking. He just wanted to watch him get beaten up so he could understand his current level. Graven, Rave's younger brother, was already a ranked fighter. With Baphomet's current condition, there was no way he could win, so he might as well find the right timing to surrender. But, right as Baphomet thought that, Graven had already rushed in front of him and thrown a punch. Baphomet instinctively raised his hand to block. But in the next second, Graven changed tactics and grabbed Baphomet's arm. Then he threw him down with a clean shoulder throw. Immediately after that, Graven slammed another punch down, moving so fast, Baphomet could not react in time. Luckily, the punch only grazed his cheek before smashing him to the ground. Baphomet cursed inwardly. This brat had never intended to spar from the start. He was clearly here to beat me up. But maybe that was fine too, because Baphomet seemed to find a strange, satisfying thrill in it. Just as Baphomet was starting to get excited, Graven suddenly stopped his fist. He called off the match himself and said, "Let's end it here. I don't think this has any meaning." Hearing that, Baphomet froze on the spot. He had only just started getting excited. How could the match end that easily? In the next instant, the pressure around Baphomet suddenly surged. His figure closed in without a sound. And in that single moment, Graven felt the presence of death. His body moved on instinct, and he kicked backward with all his strength. But the moment the kick went out, Gravin realized what he had done. There was no way to pull it back now. With a sharp crash, the window shattered. Baphomet was sent flying straight into a swimming pool. His body was not really hurt, but there was one serious problem. He apparently did not know how to swim. In his dazed state, Baphomet seemed to see a blonde beauty approaching him. The two of them locked eyes underwater. In the next second, survival instinct took over, and Baphomet grabbed onto anything around him that he could possibly hold. And so, an extremely dramatic scene unfolded. A moment later, Baphomet suddenly woke up. He patted his head, which felt like it had been filled with water. When he turned to look, the blonde woman who had just saved him was lying beside him, seemingly unconscious. Suddenly, a voice came from above. "Move your eyes away before I make you." That scared Baphomet more than a little, and he quickly got up and stepped back. But, to his surprise, two more women had already surrounded him from behind. Just then, Ma Sung-eun finally arrived with his assistant. The moment he recognized the person in front of him, his heart nearly stopped. It was Echidna, the representative of the Art Guild. Ma Sung-eun was about to explain, but Echidna had no intention of listening. She ordered Eunhae to collect the hair from underwater. Eunhae quickly jumped back ashore and handed the strands to Echidna. Ma Sung-eun immediately sensed that things were going bad. This was not going to be settled easily. Echidna said coldly, "That man not only ruined our guild's party, but more importantly, he ripped out this. Do you know what this is?" Ma Sung-eun looked confused. "Isn't that just hair?" Hearing him say it so casually made Echidna flare up at once. "This is not just ordinary hair. This is the result of countless days and nights, an entire beauty salon rented at a ridiculous price, and the time and effort we spent forcing that lazy girl to actually accept proper care. Every strand is worth its weight in gold." As soon as she said that, the air fell into a short and awkward silence. After a long pause, Ma Sung-eun carefully asked how she wanted to handle it. Echidna looked at Baphomet and answered very simply, 1 million per strand. There are 116 strands, so that makes 116 million. Pay up. Baphomet immediately lost his temper and roared, "Does that even make sense? One strand of hair costs that much? What exactly is that hunter supposed to be? A toy worth that much money? No, a human?" The moment he said that, everyone was stunned. She is a near S-rank hunter, codename Fajina. Not only is she powerful, but her looks are on another level. She is also the top choice for advertising modeling. And you seriously don't know her? Echidna pointed at Baphomet and said, "Enough talking. Pay the compensation, or use your body to cover the debt." Those familiar words instantly brought back a painful memory for Baphomet. That quack doctor had said almost the exact same thing. No, wait. This shouldn't be entirely my problem. That's right. What about the guy who kicked me flying in the first place? A moment later, Gravin also arrived and briefly explained what had happened. Echidna thought it over. Offending Rogue Guild, the organization behind Daeyoung, over one rookie, really was not worth it. Forgiveness was possible, but compensation was still necessary. Baphomet looked annoyed and was just about to curse her out. But Ma Sung-eun stepped forward in time and offered to share exclusive rights to a tower with the Art Guild. The moment they heard exclusive tower rights, everyone's expression changed. After all, that was basically the same as handing over all the magic stones and items inside the tower. It was practically a golden egg falling from the sky. Echidna pretended that she needed to discuss it with her team first, just so she would not look too greedy. After saying that, she turned around and began whispering with her teammates. After a long while, Echidna finally accepted Ma Sung-eun's proposal, and the incident was settled. A moment later, Fajina slowly opened her eyes and asked what had happened. Echidna simply told her they would talk about it later. Then, the five of them left the pool area without looking back. But as they passed by Baphomet, Fajina deliberately winked at him. Baphomet just stood there stunned, completely unable to understand what she was trying to say. The next day, after the targeted guidance ended, Ma Sung-eun brought Baphomet to a remote village. He said he had prepared a place for him to live. When they stepped inside, there was a spacious yard where he could actually feel close to nature. It also had a rustic charm that could only be found in the countryside. In simple terms, the place was practically empty. Ma Sung-eun had already prepared himself to be cursed out by Baphomet. But before he could even speak, Baphomet said first, "Isn't this pretty good? The weeds just need to be cleaned up a little. It feels spacious, and the house only needs some minor repairs." Ma Sung-eun froze on the spot, even wondering if there was something wrong with his ears. Whatever, as long as he was satisfied, Ma Sung-eun did not want to spend extra money buying him a house in the city anyway. As they chatted, a figure suddenly flashed past outside the door. Baphomet sensed something strange and immediately turned to look. but there was nothing outside, so he could only treat it as his imagination for now. Then, Ma Sung-eun officially gave him his mission. The target was the instructor responsible for helping new hunters adapt to real combat after targeted training. Baphomet's job was to monitor him and gather evidence of his crimes. Baphomet was curious. Why monitor him instead of arresting him directly? Ma Sung-eun explained, because you're not strong enough yet. That instructor is a B-rank hunter, and right now, you're barely B-rank yourself. A few days later, several new hunters met up with their instructor, who gave a brief self-introduction. My codename is Quartz. I'm a B-rank hunter. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me anytime. Baphomet gave a faint smile. The hunter in front of him really did not look like someone connected to crime. But for some reason, Baphomet had a feeling that this man was definitely hiding something. A few minutes later, the group entered the portal. Quartz officially began evaluating everyone's combat level. The 3 people in front of him were all within F rank, which was standard for new hunters, so that was completely normal. But Baphomet was the only exception. Why did he look so calm and effortless? Whether it was strength, agility, or judgment in battle, he was practically a perfect all-rounder. Of course, people like that had appeared before. They were usually called dungeon warriors. But even dungeon warriors should not be this skilled in combat. As that thought crossed his mind, Quartz looked at Baphomet again. Baphomet responded with a polite yet slightly awkward smile, carefully following Ma Sung-eun's instructions. A short while later, all the small monsters had been cleared out. The dungeon boss finally appeared. Faced with the enormous worm and its overwhelming size, everyone froze in fear. Seeing how useless they were, Baphomet immediately felt annoyed. He kicked one of the men away. Then, he picked up the weapon the man had dropped and activated his skill. Weapon Master activated, and Baphomet charged straight toward the giant worm. Quartz instantly sensed that something was wrong because he knew very well that using a weapon that did not belong to you usually meant the damage would be almost 0. He was about to reach out and stop him, but Baphomet had already rushed forward. With one slash, the giant worm was split in half on the spot, and blood burst into the air like a fountain. Seeing that scene, everyone was left completely stunned, unable to even decide how to react. People with overwhelming power always attracted followers. That was the first lesson Baphomet had learned after coming to this world. He had wanted to use this chance to catch Quartz's attention and make the man follow him. In the end, he did manage to attract some admiration, but for Quartz, it was clearly not enough. He only gave a few words of praise and congratulated Baphomet on passing the practical test. From now on, Baphomet was officially a hunter and no longer needed guidance. Listening to those compliments, Baphomet could not help feeling a little pleased with himself. Only at the very end did he suddenly realize that he might have messed everything up. A few days later, the news reached Ma Sung-eun, and the result was more or less what he had expected. Baphomet cursed under his breath. He had not expected his first operation to end like this. No, it's not over yet. That man is definitely hiding something dirty. But now, the one chance to approach Quartz openly was gone. Baphomet had no choice but to move in the shadows and secretly follow him. He began observing Quartz's movements and investigating his relationships with the people around him. Somewhere in those routines, there had to be a clue connected to his crimes. But after several days of investigation, Quartz did almost nothing except go to work, leave work, and return home. Even Baphomet started wondering if the higher-ups had made a mistake. Maybe he should just cut off the man's limbs and force him to confess? No, that clearly wouldn't work. Since he was living in the human world now, he had to think in a human way. Just then, Quartz suddenly started running for some reason. Had he noticed that Baphomet was following him? In the next second, a beautiful woman carrying vegetables appeared from behind. The moment Quartz saw her, he rushed over and hugged her tightly, as if she might disappear if he let go. Watching from a distance, Baphomet grinned. He had finally found the human method. Baphomet immediately sent his plan to Dae-young. Dae-young was completely confused after reading it. Disguising it as an accident? Well, that part is simple enough. So the next day, after Quartz heard that his wife had been in a car accident, he rushed back home in a panic. What he saw was his wife cleaning Baphomet's wound. Baphomet deliberately put on a shocked expression and said, "Isn't this Instructor Quartz?" Quartz ignored him and first asked his wife what had happened. Meanwhile, Baphomet took the chance to wander around the house, trying to find some clues. Before long, he found a group photo. He was about to take a closer look, but Quartz reached out and stopped him. "Hunter, Baphomet, thank you for saving my wife, but it's getting late. You should go." But right after Quartz said that, his wife asked Baphomet to stay for dinner, and Quartz did not dare go against her. A short while later, Quartz was devouring the food in his bowl. He even asked for another serving. But the moment he crouched down to clean up the dishes, Baphomet's expression tightened slightly as he sensed something was off. There was a strange, indescribable wrongness about this woman, as if she had stopped breathing a very long time ago. Once, there had been a pair of childhood sweethearts, whether as children or during their school days. Even after they got married, they were the perfect couple in everyone's eyes. Then, the gate impact happened, and countless monsters poured out of the portals. The husband fought monsters outside, while the wife hid in the shadows, not daring to make a sound. In that desperate moment, the wife remembered the escape method her husband had prepared for her. It was a teleportation device, but because she was too kind, the device was stolen by people with evil hearts. Even in her final moments, all she wanted was to see that familiar figure one more time. The next day, Quartz used the license plate number to successfully track down the hidden-run culprit's hideout. He pushed the door open, but the person standing before him made him completely lose his composure. That's right, it was his wife. By then, Yu Hyun had already been awakened by Baphomet. But once those memories returned, she lost her sense of self, and her eyes became dull and empty. Strange, isn't it? Why is your wife here? Because I arranged that car accident. I was just curious about exactly how you were involved in crime. But now the answer is pretty obvious. The key is your wife, who should have died long ago. Quartz clenched his teeth and growled, "Don't touch her." Baphomet ignored him and kept talking to himself. All I did was let her realize she was already dead, and she turned into this mindless state. So I'm curious, what method did you use to bring her back to life and make her like this? But none of that really has anything to do with me. Baphomet shoved Yu Hyun out the window. Quartz reached out to stop him, but he was one step too late. With a heavy crash, something inside Quartz seemed to die completely. Baphomet could not understand it at all. Why is he sad? Couldn't he just bring her back again? Murderous rage filled Quartz's eyes, and in his mind, he had already torn Baphomet apart 1,000 times. He summoned his weapon and cursed. "You little bastard, you're going to regret what you did today." Baphomet showed no fear and summoned his own weapon from his inventory. "Then go ahead and try. I don't mind taking another arm from you." The battle erupted instantly, and the two of them fought from outside the house all the way back inside. The middle-aged man looked frail at first glance, but B rank was still B rank. His strength was real, and for a short moment, he even managed to suppress Baphomet. During the fight, Quartz slowly began to speak. "Ever since we were kids, whether it was middle school or high school, we were always together. But that day, everything ended. I carefully checked Yu Hyun's body, but I couldn't find the teleportation device. That meant someone had taken it from her. So I went to the shelter to kill that person and avenge Yu Hyun. I was going to make her suffer. But when I got there, that familiar teleportation device was right in front of me. The shelter had been attacked too. Was Yu Hyun really destined to die no matter what? No, we were supposed to stay together forever. Even if death came for us, we were still supposed to be together. You learned something you should never have known. If I kill you, I can turn everything around, and Yu Hyun and I can go back to the life we had before." Rage surged through Baphomet. "You really are hopelessly stubborn." He swung his sword, and Quartz's arm was severed on the spot, blood spraying from the wound. "I've seen people like you before, always screaming about feelings. The moment you pour emotions into your blade, you're already destined to lose." Damn it. Did I seriously spend 2 whole weeks investigating just for a fight like this? If one arm isn't enough, then hand over a leg too. Quartz shouted in a broken voice. "Who the hell are you? What does anything I did to save my wife have to do with you? I didn't do anything wrong. Yu Hyun was the one who deserved to live. I only brought back someone who should have been alive. What's wrong with that?" The more he talked, the more ridiculous he sounded, and Baphomet finally could not stand listening anymore. He snapped, "Stop trying to justify yourself. You did nothing wrong? What a joke. You know exactly what you've done. Yet you still dare to stain her name with that shameless attitude. Looks like killing you directly would be much easier." After saying that, Baphomet picked up his dagger and slowly walked toward Quartz. But just then, a system alert suddenly interrupted him. "Emergency. Due to a system error, a monster has appeared nearby. Hunters in the area, please eliminate it immediately." Before Baphomet could even take another look, a massive claw suddenly appeared behind him and smashed him straight into the wall. Quartz's vision darkened. His heart sank to the bottom, because the monster in front of him was none other than the wife he had been protecting all this time. Yu Hyun. After protecting her again and again, what waited for him was his wife's gaping, blood-soaked maw. Suddenly, a slash tore through the air, ripping the monster's mouth apart. Baphomet walked out from the rubble. Blood was streaming down his head. Ding! Baphomet's passive skill, Berserk, has activated. Damn it. Can you still call that thing your wife now? The monster screamed in pain and lashed out with its tentacles, but Baphomet moved with ease. Not a single attack even touched a hair on him. After dodging the assault, Baphomet seized the opening. He leaped high into the air. With one heavy cleaving strike, he split open the monster's abdomen. Then he dove straight into its body, gripped his dagger, and unleashed an endless storm of slashes. He kept cutting until the monster was reduced to a pool of blood. The fragments of Yu-hyun that separated from the monster's body lay silently in front of Quartz. Quartz completely broke down. On the other side, after the fight ended, Baphomet suddenly felt dizzy. He cursed under his breath. That damn side effect again. I have to kill Quartz before it fully kicks in. Frenzy restriction activated. Movement restriction activated. As the system voice rang out, Baphomet lost all ability to move. He collapsed weakly to the ground. Quartz's eyes turned cold. He picked up his weapon and glared viciously at Baphomet. Yu-hyun became like this because of you. Pay with your life. With that, he sent a slash flying toward him. In his mind, Baphomet had already cursed the system countless times, but the system answered him like this. I would never harm you, because I worry about you more than anyone. The next second, Ma Sung-woon appeared out of thin air and kicked Quartz's weapon in half. Then he followed up with another kick, sending Quartz flying like a cannonball into the wall. Quartz passed out completely. Ma Sung-woon spoke slowly. You worked hard. Leave the rest to us. Baphomet lay on the ground without answering. He only muttered to himself, I should have killed him before the team leader arrived. If it weren't for that system window that has been tormenting me since the beginning. No, the real problem is that if I were just a little stronger, I would have killed him myself long ago. By evening, Ma Sung-woon and Daeyeon were escorting the prisoner Quartz together. They had thought the transfer would go smoothly, but no one expected that the monster would appear behind Quartz once again. Ma Sung-woon tried to stop it, but he was still one step too late. With a violent crash, the vehicle was destroyed and the whole scene fell into chaos. Meanwhile, the unconscious Baphomet suddenly felt a strange pressure pressing down on him. When he opened his eyes, he saw a cat, and somehow, the cat looked familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. The next second, the curtain beside the bed was pulled open. A beautiful figure appeared before him and said in surprise, Oh my god, room 302 is awake. That's faster than I expected. Hearing that familiar voice again, Baphomet snapped, fully awake. Wasn't this the quack doctor who made him repay his debt with his body? The moment he recognized her face, Baphomet completely panicked. He scrambled out of bed in a mess. Then he demanded, Why are you here? Kim Yoon-so answered calmly, I'm in my own hospital. Do I need a reason? But now that I look at you, your body seems even better after a few months. As she said that, she lightly traced Baphomet's abs with the tip of her foot. Baphomet immediately warned Kim Yoon-seo not to mess around. He had regained his power now, and this time he would not hold back. Kim Yoon-seo pouted and said, You really shouldn't say things like that. People might misunderstand. But if room 302 agrees, I don't mind letting something happen. At that moment, Ma Sung-woon arrived at the hospital and was about to ask where Baphomet was. But then he heard a scream coming from the ward. He hurried over and opened the door to check. He saw Kim Yoon-seo teasing Baphomet so badly that he had passed out. A long while later, Baphomet slowly woke up. When he learned that Ma Sung-woon had actually known Kim Yoon-seo all along, he became even more furious. Ma Sung-woon explained that this hospital belonged to an upper-level organization, which meant he and Kim Yoon-seo were technically colleagues. The explanation was perfectly reasonable. Baphomet stopped pressing the matter for now and asked about the results of the investigation into Quartz. The moment Quartz was mentioned, Ma Sung-woon's expression darkened. Then he briefly described what had happened at the scene. In short, by the time they checked on Quartz, he had already been chewed apart by the monster. Hearing that, Baphomet flew into a rage. The chance he had worked so hard to create had just vanished so casually. Ma Sung-woon tried to explain further, but Baphomet cut him off. In the end, it just means you weren't capable enough, right? If it were me, I would have forced him to reveal the mastermind on the spot. Hearing that, Ma Sung-woon finally lost his temper too and grabbed Baphomet by the collar. He snapped, You? What can you do? You're only B rank right now. In the end, neither of them could convince the other, and Baphomet stormed out. Ma Sung-woon chased after him, still trying to call him back. But Baphomet was already too furious to listen. He threw up a very unfriendly gesture and left without looking back. Kim Yun-so told Ma Sung-un to calm down, because Baphomet was no ordinary person. She had once seen Baphomet on the verge of death with her own eyes. She had also seen his abnormal self-healing ability. And more importantly, she had seen that dangerous red system window. Ding! You must save him, or you will die too. Hearing that, Ma Sung-un froze. He had never heard of anything like this before. Could that guy really help him realize the ambition that had long been crushed out of him? A while later, Daeun drove Baphomet back home and told him to rest for the time being, since he was still under movement restriction. If the higher-ups issued a new mission, she would contact him again. Since even the organization had approved his leave, Baphomet had no reason to stay tense anymore. He could eat when he wanted and drink when he wanted. He could watch movies when he wanted. But after an entire day, Baphomet only grew more irritated. Damn it, with this pathetically weak body, nothing feels enjoyable no matter what I do. Was wanting to become human a mistake from the start? No, was it because he had lost his power? That did not seem right either. Power could always be trained back. Was it because he had fallen from the very top to the very bottom, making everything feel so pathetic? Just as he was thinking, the red system window appeared again. Ding, are you sad? That message became the final straw that broke Baphomet. Baphomet let out a helpless laugh. Yeah, are you satisfied now? You're the one who turned me into this mess, aren't you? Why the hell are you doing this to me? Ding. Everything is for you. Baphomet sneered. For me? Looks more like you're trying to torture me. If your goal was to make me suffer, then congratulations, you succeeded. The system no longer answered him. Ding. Protocol executing. Current execution count, 999,999. If it fails one more time, the system will be reconstructed. So what are you planning to do next? Keep getting in my way? If that's the case, you might as well just kill me. This time, it will definitely succeed. Baphomet had completely lost it. Did you not hear me? I told you to kill me. The system's voice rang out again. Hacker system successfully activated. Congratulations, Administrator. Beginning invasion of Earth immediately. The system voice disappeared. Baphomet froze. Why had everything around him suddenly stopped moving? Just then, a blue glow suddenly bloomed from one person's body. I'm sorry. Since Earth's system wasn't built by me, I arrived a little late. Then another voice followed. But don't misunderstand. It's not that I hate you. Finally, all the light gathered together. It slowly formed into a human figure. She spoke. Now I'll tell you why I took away all of your power. Baphomet looked completely lost and was about to ask something, but the woman cut him off. A long time ago, I ran an experiment. I placed your power inside a human body, but every result led to death. Whether your body was torn apart or pierced through, you never managed to escape that fate. After tens of thousands of simulations, I changed the method. I wanted to see what would happen if I gave you no power at all. In the end, the unknown variable produced no fixed result, so I decided to wait for it. I wanted to see what kind of surprise that unknown outcome would bring me. Hearing this, Baphomet finally showed a hint of interest. So then, in all those simulations, who killed me? It had to be someone stronger than me, right? The administrator smiled faintly. Haha, as expected of Baphomet, your focus really is different from everyone else's. But that is exactly what I was waiting for you to ask. After saying that, the administrator casually drew a few lines in the void. In the next instant, 6 shadowy figures appeared before Baphomet. Each one was an existence that even his original power could never defeat. You need to grow stronger. Stronger than you ever were before. Suddenly, one of those figures completely captured Baphomet's attention. Isn't that Rave? Why is he still alive? The administrator did not notice Baphomet's panic. She continued, your greedy desire will make you stronger. Endless craving is the true source of your power. You must make everyone tremble in fear the moment they hear your name. Dang. Under the administrator's protection, Baphomet's skills are now being updated. Weapon Master has been upgraded. The Berserk passive has been upgraded into the Adrenaline passive. From now on, you will no longer suffer the simple side effects. New skill acquired. New skill acquired. After the chain of announcements ended, the scene around him snapped back to reality. Just as Baphomet thought everything that had happened was only an illusion, the red system window in front of him made him freeze completely. Ding! Hidden mission completed. Execute the Apostle of Wrath, Rave. Reward, Rave's special skill. Baphomet gave a faint smile. Things were getting more interesting by the minute. A few days later, Baphomet was summoned back again. This time, there were 3 main matters. The first was to return the favor by throwing back that friendly gesture. Baphomet naturally refused to lose and responded in kind. Kim Yin-so watched the 2 childish men in front of her and let out a helpless sigh. The second matter was a new assignment, or rather, it was more like a trial. Baphomet was to head to the maze tower and raise his strength until he became powerful enough to capture the mastermind behind that incident. The day of the trial arrived quickly, and members from the major guilds had basically all gathered. The Arc Guild was the main organizer of this trial. Most of the other guilds were just here to grab experience and rewards, and Baphomet was one of them. But right now, he had no interest in listening to the Arc Guild's speech. He was even starting to think about backing out. It was not because Baphomet was scared. It was because some things were just way too embarrassing. Seeing this, there was no way the administrator would let him off that easily. She immediately switched into nagging mode, and Baphomet grew more irritated the longer he listened. He cursed inwardly. "Are you my mom or something? Why do you nag so much?" But the administrator's next words only made him even more annoyed. "How did you know I'm your mother?" Hearing that, Baphomet instinctively stepped back. As a result, the armor of the person behind him shattered instantly, and the man pointed at Baphomet and started cursing up a storm. Baphomet originally planned to apologize and let the matter pass. But this man cursed like a sailor. Once he started, he just wouldn't stop. So, Baphomet had no choice but to take a more sensible approach. Fortunately, someone from the Arc Guild stepped in just in time. That barely stopped a fight from breaking out between teammates. After the small incident was settled, the speech continued. The maze had 3 doors in total, and all 3 had to be cleared before the boss room could be opened. Each door had a different mechanic. One required them to directly kill the monster. Another required them to undo a seal first, then kill the monster. The last one required them to avoid every trap and eliminate the monster inside. Now it was time to split into teams. First was Hunter Irene from the Nord Guild, and Irene immediately answered, "Here." The moment he heard that guild names had to be announced, Baphomet could not help shrinking back a little. Next were Accessory Hunter and Hunter Thor from the Sonman Guild, along with Hunter Ripper from the Detains Guild. And finally, Hunter Baphomet from the Sweetheart Pink Angel Guild. The moment those words were spoken, the area fell into dead silence. Everyone wondered if they had misheard. After a long pause, Ripper was the first one who failed to hold back and burst out laughing. Baphomet wanted to die on the spot. "No, first I have to kill that quack doctor, then I can think about dying." Thor laughed loudly as well. "Ha ha ha. Now, that is a guild name that suits you perfectly." After a burst of roaring, everyone finally finished preparing and stood ready to depart. Baphomet quietly followed at the very back of the group, thinking that he had to show off properly in actual combat. As the door opened, Eunhye immediately saw through Baphomet's intentions. She was just about to warn him, but Baphomet had already charged forward. Ding! Activating Lord Baphomet's special skill, Rapid Advance. When entering a tower below legendary rank for combat, the user alone unlocks every strategy route, including monster information. In other words, this function was like having the answer sheet placed right in front of him during an exam. First floor, cleared with ease. 5th floor, cleared successfully. Thor was completely stunned. At first he had thought Baphomet was just some F-rank loser. Now it seemed that he was the real loser here. And just like that, relying on his unique skill, the group quickly cleared all the way to the 15th floor. Eunhye and Ripper were both full of praise for Baphomet. Thor, however, was shaking with rage. If his top-tier Bahamut armor had not been damaged, the one standing there stealing the spotlight would not have been Baphomet at all. Secretary Wang noticed the young master's emotions spiraling and quickly stopped Thor before he completely snapped, telling him to show everyone what real strength looked like on the next floor. At the same time, Ripper stared at Thor's armor and fell into thought. Then she glanced down at the information below and realized he was actually from the Roll Gold Guild. Ripper slowly approached Thor. In a low voice, she said, "Young master of Roll Gold, this armor is fake. There are no public transaction records for any Bahamut-related item. You understand what that means, right?" Realizing their identity had been exposed, Secretary Huang's face tightened, and he immediately asked what Ripper wanted. Ripper smiled calmly and said she could help them catch the scammer. But after they got out of the tower, she needed Thor to do her a favor. Watching them whisper among themselves, Baphomet also fell into thought. He could clearly feel that this woman was definitely not as simple as she looked, and reality proved him right. In the battles that followed, she displayed astonishing combat ability, making her someone worth keeping a close eye on. Just like that, The group fought from morning all the way into night, clearing floor after floor. With Thor witnessing everything firsthand, they successfully cleared the 49th floor. By the time they reached the 50th floor, everyone was completely exhausted, except Baphomet, who looked perfectly fine. He seemed as relaxed as if he were strolling through his own backyard. The 50th floor should have been the boss room, but their instincts told them there was probably another layer hidden behind it, and that layer was most likely where the true final monster waited. Before opening the door, Eun-hye turned back and warned everyone that anyone who wanted to stop should say so now. She did not want to watch someone die beside her. Naturally, no one wanted to quit halfway. Thor was the only one who hesitated a little, but in the end, he still gritted his teeth and agreed. Since his young master agreed, Secretary Huang naturally had no choice but to follow. And that decision would become something Thor regretted for the rest of his life. When the door opened, the inside was pitch black, almost impossible to see through. Once the lights came on, everyone looked up. All kinds of stone statues stood silently before them, each with a different shape. Everyone looked completely confused, but Thor suddenly understood and shouted that this was chess, the field he was best at. But the moment he finished speaking, a chess piece came crashing down, and a massive hand appeared in the sky. The hand spoke. "Now it's your turn." Thor immediately reacted, believing the opposing player was asking them to play against him. Baphomet believed this as well, and simply watched Thor perform. To be fair, when it came to chess talent, Thor might truly have been a genius. He quickly found the correct position and stood on it, even calling for everyone to hurry over to him. But in the next second, a giant chess piece appeared out of thin air. Thor had no time to react, and could only watch as danger fell toward him. At that critical moment, Secretary Huang threw himself forward and pushed Thor out of the way, only to be crushed into a pool of blood himself. Eun-hye was shocked. Before she could even understand what had happened, someone in the party had already died. Hunter Ripper was the first to figure it out. She realized that "your turn" was not referring to them, but to another chess player on the opposing side. The monster Baphomet gave a faint smile and said, "Right? Now this is the tower I know." Thor desperately pulled at what remained, but what appeared before his eyes was only a severed arm. Thor completely broke down, because his own choice had gotten Secretary Huang killed. Soon, another chess piece came crashing down from the sky, but Eun-hye reacted quickly and saved Thor just in time. Seeing this, Ripper quickly turned to Baphomet and asked if he had a way to deal with it. Of course, Baphomet understood the rules of this game very well. Basically, they just had to wait until both sides finished the chess match, survive until the end, and defeat that thing to win. Sure, those are the rules, but who says we have to follow them properly? Sometimes the simple answer is the best one. As soon as he said that, Baphomet threw a punch and smashed the falling chess piece into pieces. The giant hand holding the chess piece trembled slightly, as if it had never expected Baphomet to do something like that. Just break them all. If every movable piece is gone, the game will be forced to stop. Then, the owner of this room will show itself out of anger. That is the real way to clear this game. Ripper really did not want to admit it, but it was definitely a valid method. In the next moment, the battle erupted. As more and more chess pieces were destroyed, the creature hiding in the shadows finally could not hold back and revealed its true form. It suddenly summoned countless branches and sent them whipping toward the group. But Baphomet did not panic at all. He rapidly spun the chain in his hand. Then he hurled it forward. The axe struck the core of the branches with perfect accuracy. Once the core shattered, the mastermind hiding behind the branches completely lost its ability to fight back. The axe blade bit deep into its body. Baphomet said in a low voice, "Wood burns pretty easily. Perfect. Now I can properly test its performance." As he spoke, flames began rising around Baphomet. Ding! Activating Apostle Rage's special skill, Giga Blade. The moment the announcement ended, tons of fire raced up the chain. The instant the flames touched the elite monster, fire exploded in every direction, and crimson petals bloomed in the air. Baphomet gave a mocking laugh. "Now this feels like a real fight. Come on, burn even hotter. Let all the anger frozen inside my heart disappear." The line sounded cool enough on the surface, but to Ripper, it was painfully edgy. After the elite monster was defeated, the branches supporting the monster room began to disappear, and the ground started collapsing piece by piece. Ripper pointed toward the exit, not far away, and told everyone to run. Thor stumbled and lost his balance, his body tipping uncontrollably toward the abyss. Luckily, his survival instinct kicked in, and he managed to force himself steady. But Secretary Huang's severed arm unfortunately fell down below. In order to bring back Secretary Huan's remains, Thor stopped caring about anything else and leapt after it with all his strength. Everyone was shocked when they saw this. Just as Thor was about to fall into the abyss, Baphomet's powerful hand grabbed in time. He had saved Thor's body, but the will in Thor's eyes was already gone. Even if Thor made it out of here alive, he would probably never be able to fight in another tower again, and would die sooner or later. Maybe, for him, dying right now would actually be the best ending. After saying that, Baphomet let go, as if granting Thor's wish. But at that critical moment, another figure appeared, without a sound. That person moved smoothly and pulled Thor back up. You really are a bad guy, but taming you should be pretty fun. The one who appeared was none other than the active S-rank hunter, Vagina. A long time ago, Vagina had been asked in an interview what her ideal type was. Back then, she did not really have anything specific in mind, so she simply said that when fate arrived, she would naturally know. Then one day, Baphomet fell from the sky. His appearance perfectly matched her taste. He was practically the man from her dreams. From that moment on, Vagina knew very clearly that her fate had arrived. But how was she supposed to get his attention? Vagina racked her brain over it. At last, she came up with a plan. Act weak. Powerful creatures always had an instinct to protect the weak, and Baphomet should be no different. Yes, that had been the original plan. But thanks to Echidna's slander, the whole thing completely fell apart. Vagina had planned to get up depending on the situation, but in the end, she actually fell asleep. And the misunderstanding was born. Back at the tower trial, everyone had now gathered in front of the boss room. The people around them were all praising Vagina. Only Baphomet remained cold and indifferent, showing no reaction at all. Seeing that her previous plan had failed, Vagina decided to switch tactics and play the "we know each other" card. Baphomet said nothing and simply stared at her. After a long pause, he turned to Ripper and asked, "Who is this woman? Why does she keep butting in?" Vagina's face changed instantly. She was not angry. She was nervous, because Baphomet had actually forgotten her. Did that mean she had no chance anymore? Hey, standing behind her, quickly told her to calm down and stop making that creepy love-struck face. After all, the other hunters were all looking at them with admiration, and the Arc Guild had an image to maintain. Vagina quickly pulled herself together and began arranging the battle plan. The Arc Guild would handle the boss, while everyone else only needed to focus on defense. A moment later, the door slowly opened. A powerful pressure surged out from within. Looking closely, they saw a monster holding a sword, seated on a throne. The system identified it as Karen, commander of the Maze Knights. Karen spoke slowly. "Come then. Who wishes to challenge me? Is it you?" The woman he pointed at cried out in surprise. Clearly not the one. Then, "Is it you?" Karen shifted his gaze to another hunter, and that hunter immediately broke out in cold sweat, frantically waving his hands. Finally, Karen's gaze landed on Baphomet. Baphomet's expression sharpened, and the pressure of Lord Baphomet erupted from him. Karen's body actually flinched. The monster's survival instinct made it swing its sword reflexively. Baphomet was about to summon his weapon and step in himself. But Vagina moved first, blocking in front of Baphomet. That immediately annoyed Baphomet. He was just about to snap at her when Vagina said, "Looks like this is the perfect chance to make you remember me." As soon as she finished speaking, Vagina charged forward with her long sword, giving Baphomet no chance to say a word. Ding! Skill activated. Blessing of Banagus. In an instant, green light wrapped around her body. When the glow faded, Vagina was already clad in a sharp, heroic suit of golden armor. The battle erupted at once, and Vagina struck first. In this state, all of her stats would increase by 30% for 300 seconds. All of her skill damage would also increase by 30%. Her resistance to every abnormal status effect would rise by 30% as well. With all those buffs stacked together, Vagina became terrifyingly powerful. She suppressed Karen from start to finish, leaving him no chance to counterattack and forcing him to defend the entire time. Before long, the winner had already been decided. Without question, Vagina won. Watching the fight end so quickly, Baphomet felt that something was strange. Vagina released her armored form. Then she landed steadily, and the two members of the Arc Guild immediately came forward to meet her. But Vagina's expression looked odd. The boss of the strongest tower feels different from before. It seems weaker, almost like I could have won easily, even without using my armored form. Just as everyone was feeling confused, a sharp, unidentified object suddenly emerged from Karen's body. The next second, it released a blue glow. Vagina instantly realized it. That Karen is a fake boss. The real boss is somewhere else. But before she could finish speaking, countless teleportation circles suddenly appeared overhead. Fujina immediately told everyone to get away, but Hunter Ripper did the exact opposite. She ran straight toward one of the teleportation circles. Baphomet stared blankly at the scene, completely unaware that another teleportation circle had appeared above his own head. Fujina reached out to grab him, but she was still one step too late, and Baphomet was pulled into the teleportation circle. A moment later, a drop of dew landed on Hunter Ripper's face. Ripper jolted awake. When she opened her eyes, she found herself inside a palace. Hunter Ripper was overjoyed. She started celebrating excitedly, completely unaware that she was stepping on Baphomet beneath her feet. Only when Baphomet shouted angrily did she notice. Ripper finally reacted and hurriedly stepped away in a panic. But then, Hunter Thor's voice came from behind her. Ripper became even more flustered. She quickly apologized to both of them, saying it was her fault for activating the teleportation circle and dragging everyone nearby into this. To make up for it, she was willing to hand over all the loot they gained from here. Baphomet ignored that and simply asked Ripper where they were. Ripper explained that this was the Temple of the Maze, although it did not contain priceless treasures. But the research value of the temple itself already surpassed every treasure on the market. The monster data hidden inside, the architectural design, the structure of the building, every corner was filled with the scent of history. Watching Ripper get more and more excited, Baphomet let out a helpless sigh. I think you've got it wrong. Monsters don't have history. Their minds only have one command: kill humans. It was that simple. But Ripper did not care at all. She told Baphomet to look at the mural in front of them, saying it recorded the life story of the beautiful and glorious Bellet Kingdom. That kingdom once had an outstanding ruler named Rizel. She possessed beauty greater than any woman, and she could also use curses more powerful than any mage. Baphomet thought back for a moment. Before being teleported, he did seem to have seen an extremely beautiful face. Ripper continued translating. Her excellence drew the jealousy of a neighboring kingdom, that in the end, they declared war on Bellet. To protect the king, the eldest son of the current king, her older brother Karen, began relying on dark magic and gradually fell into corruption. Meanwhile, the kingdom's archmage gave his body to the branch spirits and received powerful magic in return. Razel fell into despair. All she had wanted was for her kingdom to prosper and her people to live in peace. To protect her retainers and citizens, Rizel used magic to create a massive fortress that no one could approach. Thor was the first to speak. So that was the maze tower. But in the next second, Hunter Thor suddenly punched forward and shattered the mural in front of him. He furiously questioned Ripper. How could you read that so happily? It was because of this thing that Secretary Huan lost his life. Ripper's face filled with fear. But it was not because Thor scared her. It was because once something inside the temple was destroyed, something terrible would definitely happen. Baphomet sensed it too. He instinctively looked up. Sure enough, the teleportation circle appeared again. Light flashed, and the three of them were teleported once more. Ding! Main quest activated. Eliminate the boss of the maze tower, Razel. Ripper completely panicked. Defeat the boss? With only the three of us? How is that even possible? Before they could adjust, Razel had already gathered magic and fired it at them. Blinding light lit up the entire hall, forcing them to shut their eyes. A moment later, Baphomet slowly opened his eyes. He was now standing in a sea of flames, and in his arms was a strange woman. Razel appeared behind him and spoke slowly. Do you regret it? This memory is replaying the scene you regret most in your life. You killed someone precious to you with your own hands. You must not have wanted to do it back then, but if you hadn't, things would have gotten even worse. I can help you recover everything you lost. As long as you open your heart, you can start over. Baphomet gave a wicked smile. Start over? Why would I want to do that? In the next second, the illusion shattered. Razel was stunned. Hey, if you're going to use illusion magic, at least pick the right target. Sorry, but this isn't my memory. It belongs to the original owner of this body I stole. And start over? I got sick of that kind of life a long time ago. Don't run now. My hands are just itching for a fight. Outside the illusion, Hunter Ripper struck him with her palm. Baphomet's consciousness began to return quickly. Once Baphomet fully woke up, Ripper hurriedly apologized. Baphomet said it was fine, but secretly studied the woman in front of him. She had woken up even earlier than he did, which meant her mental strength was clearly impressive. Then, Baphomet looked at Hunter Thor beside them. Thor's cheeks were completely swollen, and it was obvious that Ripper had done it. So, is there any other way to wake him up now? Ripper slowly raised one finger. There is one final method. My uncle once told me that men have a fatal weak point. If we attack there, Hunter Thor should wake up. Baphomet instantly felt his scalp go numb. If he had woken up any later, would she have done the same thing to him? To protect the last shred of Thor's dignity as a man, Baphomet grabbed Ripper by the hair and stopped her from moving forward. Suddenly, Hunter Thor's aura surged violently. Black energy burst out from inside his body. Then it rushed straight toward the two of them. When the darkness faded, Thor's body was completely wrapped in black matter. This was corruption. In the blink of an eye, Thor appeared right in front of Ripper, and she had no time to react. At that critical moment, Baphomet dropped in from above. He used chain magic to firmly bind Thor's arm and forcefully drew the aggro onto himself. Immediately after that, the two of them crashed into each other, locked in a fierce struggle with neither side gaining the upper hand. With a loud bang, Baphomet was blasted away. After that brief exchange, he had already figured out roughly how strong Thor had become. Dodging the attacks was easy enough, but his own strength was inferior. On top of that, Thor's entire body was covered in a hard exoskeleton, making it difficult to even break his defense. Baphomet could only give a helpless, bitter smile. Right now, he could not beat him. Even if he and Ripper fought together, victory was not guaranteed. Ripper was shocked and quickly asked if Baphomet had any other way to handle this. Baphomet said there was indeed one more method, one of his skills. However, activating that skill required 3 conditions. The first condition was that he had to be on the highest floor of a tower. The second was that he had to face an opponent he could not defeat. As for the third condition, Ripper had to create an opening for him to receive a fatal attack from a hunter. The moment she heard that, Ripper's expression changed drastically. She shouted, "That is absolutely impossible. If anything goes wrong, there will truly be no chance of survival." Baphomet's face turned cold. He said, in a low voice, "Wasn't your dream to become famous as an archaeologist? If you don't even have this much resolve, then you might as well kill yourself now." Ripper felt as if her heart stopped for 2 full seconds. He could mock her all he wanted, but mocking her dream was absolutely unacceptable. With that, Ripper swung her sword. Blood immediately flowed from Baphomet's body. Ding! Skill time reversal activated. All 3 conditions have been met. Due to the disappearance of physical body data, a structure matching the user's power is now being regenerated. Countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2. Generation complete. Ripper's vision was completely blocked by crimson light. She could not see anything and could only shout helplessly. Just then, a hand appeared without a sound and knocked Hunter Ripper unconscious. Thor leaped forward and charged straight at the shadowy figure. But Baphomet only struck casually, and Thor's arm was torn apart on the spot. The attack was so fast that Thor had no time to react. Trash. Are you ready to face judgment? Ding. Skill activated. Demon God Baphomet. Form will remain active until the tower is cleared. The figure, hiding in the darkness, saw Baphomet regain his power, and cold sweat began pouring down uncontrollably. Baphomet looked down at his own palm. This form was not as stylish as before, but at the very least, the familiar power inside his body had truly returned. The only problem was that the cooldown was ridiculous. It was a full 31 million seconds. Hunter Thor still tried to resist, but Baphomet's chain magic bound him tightly, leaving him completely unable to move. Now he had to figure out how to remove all those messy curses from Thor's body. Oh, right. A job like this should be left to a professional. With that, Baphomet raised his palm toward the sky. Then he shouted, "Come out." But the surroundings remained completely silent, making the atmosphere painfully awkward. That made Baphomet's anger completely explode. "You filthy bug, how dare you disobey my order?" A terrifying crusher crashed down instantly, pinning the monster hidden in the shadows in place. Long time no see. Former boss of the Abyss Tower, BJ. That's right. Everyone knew the boss of the Abyss Tower was Baphomet. But Beje, who had been born with a silver spoon as a boss, was the original master of the Abyss Tower. At least, that was true before that day arrived. On that day, Baphomet climbed from the bottom floor to the top floor with a sack full of divine artifacts on his back. He put down his luggage and picked up his sword. Then Beje was completely beaten into submission. But because a tower would disappear if its boss was killed, Baphomet made a deal with Beje. Beje would hand over his position and teach Baphomet everything he had learned in his lifetime. Unfortunately, Baphomet's talent for magic was terrible, and in the end, he only learned chain magic. Go on. Remove all those messy curses from him. Under Baphomet's oppressive authority, Beje had no choice but to reluctantly reach out and cast magic. A moment later, a loud boom echoed through the sky. Baphomet's shoe sole made a dramatic entrance and landed squarely on Ryzel's face. Ryzel failed to dodge in time and was kicked nearly a mile away, only stopping after slamming into a wall. Now it's my turn. Come on, Ryzel. Let's have a proper fight. Ryzel crawled out from the rubble and demanded to know where Baphomet had gotten that power. Baphomet answered calmly. Are you joking? We're enemies. You really think I'd tell you? I suggest you get ready to fight. With that, Baphomet charged straight at Ryzel. Seeing him rush in, Ryzel immediately fired off instant cast magic. The spell struck Baphomet head-on. But when the light faded, Baphomet was completely unharmed, as if the attack had only tickled him. Since those little tricks were all used up, it was finally Baphomet's turn. Baphomet raised his hand, and a magic circle appeared before him. Chains surged out from the circle. Ryzel scoffed, that cheap trick, and casually released magic to cancel them out. But the chain magic had been a distraction from the very start. Baphomet's real goal was close-range combat. As punch after punch came crashing down, Ryzel could no longer keep up with Baphomet's speed. With the next blow, Ryzel's mask shattered on the spot. He collapsed weakly to the ground, feeling humiliation unlike anything he had ever known. He had once been the ruler of a kingdom and the strongest mage of his era. Yet now he was being trampled like this. Ryzel flew into a rage, and his body slowly turned into a streak of light. Seeing this, Baphomet's blood began to boil as well, and he immediately told Beje to bring him his strongest weapon. But Bei said the weapon had already been destroyed when the tower collapsed. Baphomet froze for a full second before processing it. By then, Ryzel's attack had already reached him. Baphomet had no time to react and was blasted several meters away. Ryzel had now successfully summoned a massive dragon into the battle. Even without his powerful weapon from the past, Baphomet still had the weapon he had rented from the Adventurer Guild. But the moment he pulled out the axe, it snapped in two because it could not withstand his energy. Ryzel seized the chance and summoned several more wyverns into the fight. All the wyverns released their dragon breath at once, blasting toward Baphomet. Ryzel shouted, I have things I must protect. My retainers, my people, and my kingdom. Compared to that, your power is nothing. Baphomet's voice came from within the dragon breath. What nonsense are you spouting? In the next instant, one wyvern's head was severed. No one could even see the attacker's figure. Then one wyvern after another began falling. Finally, the attack rushed straight toward Ryzel, leaving him completely stunned. Fortunately, the dragon opened a barrier in time and blocked Baphomet's violent strike. This is the power I gained after dying thousands of times. No, tens of thousands of times. I was pierced by the same divine spear, had my limbs cut off by the same bastard, and was even crushed so completely that nothing of my body remained. But I kept coming back again and again. Do you know what I did after that? I used the same method. I pierced that bastard with a spear and let his blood wash away the humiliation of my past. I cut off his limbs the same way, made his screams echo through the entire tower, then crushed his body until not a trace remained. And in the end, I was the one who stood at the top of the tower. I got there without relying on anyone. This is the power I earned through my own effort. And you think you have the right to judge my strength? Who do you think you are? I am Baphomet, the former final boss of the tower. Ding. Congratulations. You have hunted the boss of the maze tower. Ryzel. Tower cleared. Baphomet clenched Ryzel's heart in his hand, his emotions more complicated than ever. No matter how he thought about it, there should only be a handful of beings in this world capable of dealing with power this strong. And yet, he would still be killed by those people. Baphomet smiled calmly. Now this is getting interesting. Just then, Ryzel, lying under his foot, somehow spoke again. No, I still can't die. My kingdom, my people. Baphomet looked down on him and stepped on his hand with disdain. You can still live without your core? That is some stubborn willpower. But you're also incredibly stupid. That was nothing more than a tower setting. Did you actually think you were a king? Ryzel could not believe what he was hearing. What do you mean, what setting? How could I possibly be a monster? This core is the best proof. It's a core, not a heart. Suddenly, static crackled beside Baphomet's ear, and Ryzel spoke in a mechanical voice. Error detected. Fatal error in Ryzel's authority. Deleting. Before Baphomet could step forward to check, a beam of light lit up the sky, and Ryzel vanished into thin air. Just as Baphomet was feeling confused, a voice suddenly came from nearby. Baphomet instantly flashed in front of the person. Isn't this Hunter Irene from the same C-team as me? What are you doing hiding here? A moment later, because the tower boss had been killed, the portal leading outside opened. Fujina and the others walked out of the portal with blank expressions. Just as they were wondering who had defeated the boss, Baphomet walked out of the portal, carrying 3 unconscious people over his shoulder. The next day, Ma Sonun rushed into Baphomet's private hospital room with a suspicious look. He asked if Baphomet had really defeated that boss. That doubtful attitude immediately annoyed Baphomet. "What's with that look? Are you calling me a fraud again?" Ma Sonun was about to ask more, but the door suddenly opened. The moment Baphomet saw the person who walked in, he froze for a full 3 seconds. This guy was the one who had once lifted him straight to heaven, then dragged him right back down into hell. Team leader Hyo smiled faintly. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Fraud." Baphomet stared hard at team leader Hyo, his anger almost written all over his face. "What's wrong? From your reaction, you don't seem very happy to see me." "I'm actually quite happy to see you though. I heard an F-rank hunter cleared a tower, so I went to check. Turns out it was our very own Mr. Fraud. So tell me, how did you cheat this time? And since you're with team leader Ma, I can pretty much guess it. You must be the cleaner the higher-ups are training, right?" Ma Sonun and Baphomet said nothing, simply staring at team leader Ho in silence. Faced with their cold silence, team leader Ho did not feel awkward at all and kept talking. "Makes sense. A fraud like you is perfect for dirty work. But, Mr. Fraud, can you really handle team leader Ma? After all, he once eliminated 7 innocent S-rank hunters in one go." Before he could finish, Ma Sang-eun threw a punch, but team leader Ho caught it calmly. "Team leader Ma, have you lost your mind? If we fight here, this entire hospital will be flattened." Ma Sang-eun's expression turned icy. "Heo Jae-wook, I suggest you stop pushing your luck. Don't run your mouth about other people's business. Get to the point. You came here to confirm whether Hunter Baphomet really cleared the maze tower, didn't you?" Hearing that, Baphomet gave a faint smile. He was already looking forward to watching these people get slapped in the face. Then he stood up and took the proof of clearing the tower out of his item box. This was the item that had dropped after he killed Rizel. "So, do you still think I'm a fraud now?" Team leader Hyo was furious, but the evidence was already right in front of him. All he could do was threaten Baphomet and tell him to watch his mouth. Then, he left the hospital room in a hurry. By the next day, Baphomet's body had fully recovered. Acting Director Han brought Baphomet to Hunter headquarters to retest his rank. The person in charge of the test was Dr. Kim Woo-so. Although he looked unreliable at first glance, the moment anything Hunter-related came up, his entire aura changed. He explained with a serious face that the test was divided into 3 stages. In the first stage, Baphomet had to touch the blue balls with his hand. If he touched balls of any other color, points would be deducted. This stage tested a hunter's agility, stamina, reflexes, and other physical abilities. Baphomet listened with a calm expression. "Not bad. It sounds pretty thorough. In that case, I might as well go all out and aim for the best score." A short while later, the second stage began. Night Parade of 100 Demons. The result would be judged based on how many monsters he killed within 300 seconds. Most of the monsters that appeared were small ones, so they were not difficult to deal with. The third stage was a simulated combat test, where he would fight a simulated tower boss, and his result would be judged by how much damage he dealt to it. But the moment Baphomet saw that boss, he froze. This guy, wasn't he the one from back then? Interesting. Long time no see. Back then, I was too weak to beat him. But now, is this thing ready to die? A few minutes later, the 2 people outside the room stared at the scene in disbelief. They were not shocked because Baphomet was too strong. They were shocked because the moves he was using were almost exactly the same as Rave's. Dr. Kim muttered to himself, "I heard he walked out of the Abyss Tower alive, and Rave died there. Could there be some kind of connection between them? Now that is interesting." That afternoon, Baphomet walked home alone. He thought to himself, "I might have gone a little overboard this time. Before I left, those 2 looked at me strangely. But what's done is done, and overthinking it won't change anything." As he was thinking, his phone rang. It was Ma Sang-eun. He had called mainly for 2 things. First, to congratulate Baphomet on completing the test smoothly, though the final result would still take some time to come out. Second, to explain how to use the proof from the maze tower. Baphomet followed the instructions and operated it once. In an instant, bright light burst out. Then the system voice rang in his ears. "Maze tower proof successfully used. All skill levels increased by 1. Baphomet stared at his skill list in disbelief. The skill levels had really gone up. No wonder the Art Guild wanted to handle the boss themselves. The Proof of clearing a tower had this kind of value. Suddenly, Baphomet's heart clenched violently, as if something was trying to crawl out of his body. Then, his stomach churned, like everything inside him was being flipped upside down. Ma Sun-un, still on the phone, was startled and quickly asked what had happened. But Baphomet collapsed to his knees and could not answer him at all. At that moment, his mind was flooded with nauseating pain, as if his head was about to explode. In a daze, a figure appeared inside Baphomet's mind. Baphomet was shocked. Who was this? Why was someone appearing inside his head? In the next second, golden light flashed. A boy who looked both unfamiliar and strangely familiar appeared before Baphomet. This feeling dash. Don't tell me you're BJ. A moment later, BJ entered the house, looked into the mirror, and let out a pained scream. Baphomet ignored his breakdown and simply handed him the clothes in his hand. After BJ put them on, he immediately pointed at Baphomet in frustration. Then he blamed everything on Baphomet. Baphomet's expression turned cold. He remembered how BJ had refused to show up earlier, and now with this attitude on top of it, how was anyone supposed to tolerate that? He cracked his knuckles, clearly ready to tear BJ apart. BJ was so frightened that he fled in panic. But the moment he pushed open the door, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Baphomet chased him outside. There, he saw BJ being stopped by 3 elderly people. One of the elders looked Baphomet up and down and said, "You must be Little Cha. Come with us." Baphomet looked completely confused and wanted to refuse. But for some reason, his body would not listen to him and followed the 3 of them anyway. A moment later, the old woman brought Baphomet back to her home. The first thing she did was ask him to fix her electric scooter. Baphomet let out a long sigh. He had thought something serious had happened, but now he finally understood. "What are you talking about, old lady? Why should I fix this for you? And who even are you people?" The old woman introduced herself. "My name is Kim Yanja. Those 2 from earlier are Old Pooh and Old Song from next door." Baphomet immediately replied, "That's not what I was asking." Seeing that he was ignoring her, Granny Kim began playing the pity card and asked Baphomet to fix the scooter again. Baphomet naturally had no interest in dealing with such a random request, so he turned around and left. But as soon as he stepped outside, the administrator suggested that he should help her. Otherwise, it would be judged as failing a hidden mission, and the penalty for failure was death. Baphomet found it unbelievable. "Are you messing with me right now? Ding. I simply want you to learn how to express affection toward humans." "What are you talking about? Why would I need to express affection?" The administrator spoke slowly. "It is necessary. Through interacting with humans, you must find your own way of doing so. Don't joke around. Now you're talking to me about affection? Then what were all the people I killed up until now supposed to be? That is completely different from this. Can you not even tell the difference between enemies and allies?" Baphomet answered with a serious face. "Of course I can tell. To me, they're either enemies or toys. Is that good enough?" The administrator was completely speechless. "Then are you ready to die?" Left with no choice, Baphomet could only return to Granny Kim's house. Ever since that mission was issued, Baphomet, the former tower boss, had been forced to become the top labor force of this little village. Whenever the old ladies needed help, he had to answer. He fixed wardrobes for them. He rescued stray kittens they had been feeding. He even helped them weed the fields. He trimmed trees too, working without complaint. And just like that, time passed, the seasons changed, and 10 years, then 20 years went by. Until Baphomet became a hunched old man, he remained the top laborer of the village and ended his ordinary life that way. Do you think that would make a good story? Baphomet, who was already in a bad mood, instantly lost his temper after hearing that story. He threw down his paintbrush and prepared to let BJ experience some brotherly affection. A few days later, Baphomet was still working as the village's top laborer. BJ, on the other hand, was gradually adapting to human life. Recently, he had even become obsessed with novels. Whenever he finished one, he would go ask the old ladies for another. Seeing this, the administrator teased Baphomet, saying BJ was adapting to human life faster than he was. Baphomet immediately glared in fury. He dropped the box in his hands and told the administrator to stop issuing these boring missions. The administrator told Baphomet to think carefully. Had he really gained nothing from all this? For example, the old ladies would let him ride the scooter after he repaired it, and when they learned that the hot water at his house was broken, they even asked an uncle they knew to fix it for him. Baphomet did not understand. Isn't that just a slap in the face followed by a piece of candy? Just then, Granny-san walked over and began telling his story. A few years ago, there was a young man around Little Cha's age who lived in the house you're staying in now. Back then, everyone was curious why such a young man would come back to this run-down village. Every time someone passed his house, they would see piles of liquor bottles, and other than going out to buy alcohol, he almost never left. Later, Granny Kim felt that if things continued like that, something terrible would happen. So she kept finding excuses to make him help with chores. At first, he was just as confused as you. But as time passed, he became more cheerful, and he drank less and less. One day, it seemed like he had finally untangled the knot in his heart. He said he was going to finish something he had left undone. Before leaving, he asked Granny Kim for one favor. If someone ever moved into that house, please help that person. Hearing this, Baphomet's killing intent surfaced at once. He said in a low voice, "Where is that guy now? I want to have a chat with him." As they were speaking, Granny Song's granddaughter, Suyeon, came home. Though she did not look very happy. Baphomet had no interest in other people's family matters, so he kept listening to Granny Song ramble on. A few more days passed, and Baphomet finally cleaned his entire house, inside and out. As he lay on the bed, a rare sense of comfort washed over him. Looking at the bright sunlight outside the window, Baphomet felt, for just a moment, that this village might not be so bad after all. That afternoon, Granny Song's granddaughter, Suyeon, was crouching by the wall, smoking one cigarette after another. It seemed like only this moment truly belonged to her. Granny Song happened to see it, and Suyeon clicked her tongue helplessly. Then, she stepped on the cigarette butt and put it out. Granny Song scolded her, saying that she was at the final stage before entering college, and should not be doing this again. It would have been fine if she had not mentioned college, but the second she did, Suyeon immediately got angry. College? Does this family still have money to support me? I'm not going. Dad died leaving behind a mountain of debt. How is Grandma supposed to pay it back alone? I have to go out and work. Suddenly, a voice came out of nowhere. A man in a suit walked toward them and said with a smile, "Want me to introduce you to a job?" When Granny Song recognized the man, she immediately panicked. "What are you doing here? The repayment date isn't even here yet." The man said viciously, "We need money urgently, so this time, the payment is due early." Granny Song grew even more anxious. "We don't have money right now." "No money? Don't you still have a house?" "There's no way I'm giving you the house. Where are we supposed to live?" "Oh, right. Don't you still have a granddaughter? She's pretty, and her figure isn't bad either. I'm sure people would love her." Hearing those disgusting, mocking words, Suyeon completely lost her temper and grabbed the man by the hair, ready to fight him with everything she had. But the man simply flung her aside. Suyeon was thrown straight into the wall that still had wet paint on it, and that scene just happened to be witnessed by Baphomet. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? The paint on that wall isn't dry yet." The man looked at him with disdain. "What kind of random trash thinks he can stop us? Damn it. I worked hard to paint that wall, and I was even planning to take a photo to remember it. But you idiots ruined it. Unforgivable." The moment he finished speaking, the man in front was set flying dozens of meters away. In the next second, Baphomet's ice-cold face appeared right before him, and everything went dark. By evening, all the elderly people in the village gathered together, each talking about how men in black had come to their homes, causing trouble. Some said the floor Baphomet had just fixed was damaged. Others said the vegetable field he had just cleaned up was ruined. Hearing that the results of all his hard work had been destroyed so casually, Baphomet's emotions became incredibly complicated. A short while later, Baphomet returned home. He changed his clothes. Then he used BJ's summoned familiar to track the group from that afternoon. Tonight was a full moon, which made it the perfect time to kill. After some time, Baphomet slipped into their hideout without anyone noticing. He immediately pinned one of them down, his dagger pressed tightly against the man's arm. With just a little force, blood burst out, along with a scream. The others were so terrified by the scene that they did not even dare to breathe. But Baphomet had no intention of sparing the people who had destroyed his hard work. One slash after another, he cut off every single one of their arms. Meanwhile, their clueless boss had just answered a phone call. But there was no voice on the other end. The next second, the door burst open and a massive figure dropped down from above. Baphomet walked into the room, right behind it. Then he casually placed a sack on the man's desk. These arms should still be able to fit back together like puzzle pieces. Just be careful not to attach the wrong ones. The man gave a wicked smile. Thanks for the reminder. The moment he finished speaking, Baphomet and the man swung their daggers at the same time. As their blades clashed, the man's phone suddenly began ringing. The information coming through was clearly about Baphomet and the hunters. Seeing this, the man immediately threw away his dagger, raised both hands, and said, "I surrender." Baphomet looked confused. Why had he suddenly stopped fighting? The man smiled faintly. I promise I'll never step into that village again. I also won't pursue the matter of you cutting off my men's arms. Let's end this here. How does that sound? Baphomet ignored him. He brought his sword down. Blood sprayed out instantly. The man gave a bitter smile. Ruthless, aren't you? Well, fine. I guess this counts as karma. Meanwhile, Ma Sonun arrived at Granny Kim's house. As soon as Granny Kim saw him, she asked with concern whether he still drank alcohol. Ma Sonun smiled faintly and said he had already quit, only drinking a little during gatherings. That's right. Ma Sonun was the young man from back then who had shut himself away. At the same time, Baphomet was staring at the system window in disbelief. He had no idea when he completed the mission, but giving no reward at all was way too stingy. Even the old ladies in the village gave him something. You cheap god. I seriously have nothing to say. A few days later, because the axe from before had been damaged, Baphomet returned to the Hunter Association to rent another weapon, but he was told that he had to pay double compensation. Baphomet was frustrated, but since he had indeed broken someone else's item, paying compensation was reasonable. The problem was that he had no money, so he had no choice but to sell Rizel's magic stone. While he was there, he also asked the receptionist to organize his equipment inventory. The receptionist naturally agreed to such a simple request, so she sent over a request to organize his item inventory. Baphomet clicked confirm, but then he discovered that at some point a weapon had appeared in his bag. It was locked, and the label read, "The sword that pierced Rave." Now that was strange. When had this thing appeared? Suddenly, a dog ran up beside Baphomet and startled him. Right after that, a voice called out, "Kanan, come back." A woman looked unhappily at the younger man beside her. She told him to keep an eye on the dog, and embarrassment was written all over his face. The group then walked out from the back. It was only a small incident, but Baphomet still sensed something strange. He had a feeling there was something off about that dog. After arriving at the hospital, Kim Yoon-so briefly explained that dogs like that were called hounds. After the gate impact, some pets had also awakened. For example, the pet cat Casey, owned by a famous Hollywood actor. As for why this phenomenon happened, no one knew for sure. It was likely triggered by a pet's desperate desire to protect its owner during the gate impact. Baphomet glanced at her calmly and did not ask any more questions. Suddenly, Baphomet remembered something. Right, I'm quitting your guild. The moment Kim Yoon-so heard that, she immediately reacted. How could that be allowed? She stood up at once, hugged Baphomet, and told him to calm down first. After all, joining a guild was a requirement for exploring towers. Baphomet had already made up his mind and was about to refuse again. But then Dae-young opened the door and walked in. She took out a file and said this was a new mission. The target was a team made up of 3 hunters. They usually used tower clear rewards as bait. First, they would lure a hunter into joining them. Then, after clearing the tower, they would kill that hunter and steal all the loot. They were thieves who specialized in hunting other hunters. Hunter Baphomet glanced at the file and immediately felt that it looked familiar. Are these the same people I saw at the central management office? After hearing that, the two of them looked helpless. If Baphomet had already met them once, the mission could very well fail. After all, hounds had an extremely sharp sense of smell. Once they had met someone, they would definitely recognize them again. Hearing this, the head nurse spoke slowly. Then why not disguise him as someone else? As for the scent, just cover it up with something hounds hate. The moment she said that, all 3 of them froze. That actually made sense. And so, Armored Baphomet was born. A few days later, Baphomet successfully joined the Thief Hunters team and became their target. During the fight, Baphomet's mind slipped for a moment, and he forgot that he was supposed to hide his strength. As a result, he completely stunned the siblings. How is this the B-rank power described in the intel? Calling him A-rank wouldn't be an exaggeration. Because of that, the siblings immediately decided to abandon their original plan and switch to a new strategy: recruit him. If Baphomet joined them, the rewards could be split 40-60, with Baphomet taking 60%. Baphomet put on a very troubled expression. After a long pause, he finally agreed. At that moment, the older sister, Park Sia, slowly spoke. "Since you have joined the team, please show us your real face." Baphomet froze for a second. That request was not unreasonable. Luckily, he had already prepared for this before coming here. So he calmly removed his helmet and revealed his disfigured face. Park Sia was shocked. "What happened to your face?" Baphomet explained. "A few years ago, when I was clearing the boss of Mog Tower, I was accidentally burned. To be honest, hunters don't make a living with their faces, so I never really cared. but the burn was a curse placed on me by the boss. I passed that curse on to my son, and it cost him his entire face. I sought treatment afterward, but neither modern medicine nor healing-type hunters could fix his face. As long as my son can recover, I'll do anything. After saying that, Baphomet put his helmet back on and thought to himself, maybe I overacted a little. Fortunately, the siblings did not suspect him. Instead, they said they would take Baphomet to meet that person, who might have a way to remove the curse. A few days later, Park Guk-chang brought the disguised Baphomet to a gathering place. When the door opened, the first things they saw were two people wearing nun outfits and strange masks. The nuns danced gracefully, as if welcoming someone's arrival. In the next second, a figure descended from above and landed right between the nuns. The moment that person appeared, the crowd below erupted into cheers, begging the cult leader to save their children. Baphomet was just as excited, because just now, the system had issued him a new mission. Conditions for the main quest have been met. Main quest: eliminate the Apostle of Lust. A long time ago, Beje had found information about the 7 deadly sins in a book. Rave was the Apostle of Wrath, and the remaining 6 shadows perfectly matched the other 6 deadly sins: pride, sloth, envy, greed, gluttony, and lust. Back to the present, a woman pushed her daughter, who was suffering from leukemia, slowly up to Lust and begged him to save her. Lust did not say much. He simply placed his hand gently on the girl's head. In the next second, light flashed. The girl's hair actually began to grow back. Her eyes also became bright and full of life again. Seeing this miracle-like scene, the crowd below burst into shocked cries once more. Park Guk-chang took the chance to ask Baphomet, "What do you think? Do you want to meet the cult leader in person?" Baphomet's eyes turned fierce. "Of course I do. I definitely need to meet this guy properly." That afternoon, inside Lust's office, after hearing the explanation, Lust roughly understood the situation and said he was very willing to treat Baphomet's son. As for Baphomet's son, that was right. It was BG in disguise. Lust moved closer and examined BJ carefully, discovering that there really was an evil aura around him. He judged that this must be the curse. Baphomet looked confused, while Beihei explained through voice transmission. He probably mistook a monster's aura for a curse. Then Lust turned his gaze to Baphomet. Baphomet stated, "I don't care what happens to me. Just treat my son first." Lust spoke slowly. "Of course, that is not a problem, but the treatment may require a great deal of effort." Even an idiot could understand what that meant. In plain terms, he wanted money. Baphomet agreed without hesitation. However, before treatment can officially begin, your son needs to spend some time with the believers. Come out, teachers. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 figures silently appeared. Neither Baphomet nor BJ had sensed them beforehand, which proved they were not weak. The 2 teachers bent down and said to Beje, "Come now, follow your teachers." Beje helplessly glanced at Baphomet, but Baphomet did not respond. He simply stared coldly at Lust. "This won't do," Beje thought to himself. Beihei immediately rushed forward and hugged Baphomet. On the surface, he obediently said, "I will eat properly and sleep properly." But secretly, he was frantically sending Baphomet a voice transmission. "Please don't abandon me." Baphomet replied impatiently, "I know." Soon after, Beihei was taken away by the 2 teachers, meaning the undercover infiltration had succeeded. Baphomet had no reason to stay there any longer, so he quickly left. Meanwhile, Beijay was brought into the cafeteria. The children there were all sitting quietly in their chairs, smiling as they looked at him. But the whole scene carried an eerie feeling that was hard to describe. Once the 2 teachers left, Beijay immediately began carrying out the plan. He activated his skill, Demon Eye, trying to see what was really wrong with this place. One look was enough to completely shatter Beijay's worldview. The children who had looked so full of life moments ago, now all appeared like they were on the verge of death. Was everything here just an illusion? At the same time, all the controlled believers gathered together. Their bodies began moving wildly against their will, revealing the most primitive impulses of humanity. Seeing this, Lust could not help bursting into laughter. These middle-aged folks are incredible. People with experience really are different. That's right, this is not a sin. This is simply following instinct. It is merely adding a little pleasure to a noble act. A moment later, Baphomet, who was far away inside the tower, received the message delivered by Beijay's familiar. He now had a general understanding of what that church truly was. Park Sia stepped forward and asked, "Do you have some urgent matter to deal with?" Baphomet seemed distracted, but he simply said. Instead, he asked, "Why didn't Park Guk-chang and the Hound come to clear the tower?" Park Sia explained, "Today is the day our parents are being discharged from the hospital, so they went to pick them up. Baphomet did not care much and said calmly, "Good. If there are too many people, cleaning things up only gets more annoying." To Park Sia, that might have sounded like he meant dealing with monsters. But what Baphomet really meant was closing the net. After all, he had already learned what he needed from Beje. There was no reason to keep acting anymore. The instant Park Sia let her guard down, Baphomet suddenly turned and threw a punch. Park Sia was forced back several steps and shouted in shock, "What are you doing?" Baphomet's eyes turned crimson as he answered coldly, "What am I doing? Arresting you, of course. You're different from your brother. You know very well that what you're doing is a crime. But you refuse to face your own evil and keep desperately making excuses for your parents? How laughable. Do you really think that guy can save people?" Park Sia's face filled with panic, and she was about to ask what Baphomet meant. But Baphomet had already flashed in front of her and pinned her hard to the ground. Then he removed his helmet. When Park Sia saw his face, she was completely stunned. What appeared before her was not the disfigured face from before. It was a bright, handsome face. What, scared? Is it because I'm too good-looking? Don't worry, I won't hurt you for now. I still need you to help me take down that cult leader. Meanwhile, Park Guk-chang brought Kanan in front of his parents. It should have been a tearful reunion, but Kanan's eyes filled with tears as she sent a voice transmission to Park Guk-chang. "Brother, Mom and Dad are already dead." Park Guk-chang looked confused. "Kanan, what are you talking about? Mom and Dad are standing right there." But Kanan ignored him and shifted into a battle stance. Lust spoke calmly. "As expected of a hound, ordinary illusions really can't fool you." Park Guk-chang was still completely lost. "Cult leader, what do you mean by that?" "What do I mean? Your dad already told you, didn't she? I wanted to get rid of you quietly, but judging from her reaction, that clearly won't work. Fine. I don't need you anymore anyway." With that, Lust removed his mask. In an instant, golden light flashed. Countless butterflies drifted down through the air, and in a daze, Kanan seemed to see Park Sia's figure. "Kanan, kill him." The next second, Kanan bit into Park Guk-chang. Park Guk-chang was torn in half at the waist, dying without ever understanding what had happened. Seeing this, Lust could not help laughing. Even more brutal than I expected. Suddenly, a small snake slipped into Lust's arms. Then, it slowly transformed into a hand. "Master, the new kid is an undercover spy. He already knows our secret. What should we do next?" Lust froze for a moment after hearing that. Then, a smile spread across his face. "I just thought of something fun. A father-son battle might be quite entertaining." Sometime later, Baphomet, unaware of what had happened, arrived at the church. Seeing Beihei standing there in silence, he finally sensed that something was wrong. "What happened to you?" But before Baphomet could ask more, Lust descended from above. "You really have no idea what I've been plotting behind your back. I fooled you completely. So enjoy the show. Hunter, Baphomet." After saying that, Lust quietly disappeared. A bad feeling rose in Baphomet's chest. In the next second, Beje spread his arms and summoned a massive magic circle. Meanwhile, the disguised Park Sia sat in the audience, completely shaken by the scene before her. Could that man have been telling the truth? Was the cult leader really just a fraud who used illusion magic? Not long ago, Baphomet had already told Park Sia the truth behind everything. Of course, Park Sia had refused to believe it, because she had only recently seen her parents, their warm body temperature, and those bright, worried smiles. How could all of that have been fake? But Baphomet exposed the flaw with one sentence. "Have you ever met them outside? Or have you ever let the hound meet them?" The moment she heard that, Park Sia felt a sharp pain in her chest, and a terrible feeling rose inside her. The fact that he agreed to let the hound meet your parents today means your parents have already been dead for a long time. And right now, your brother and the hound may already be in serious danger. There is only one new path in front of you. Help me, and I'll help you get revenge. Thinking back to that, Park Sia no longer hesitated. On the other side, the controlled Beige actually used spatial magic. It would not truly damage Baphomet. But once he was trapped inside, Baphomet would completely lose his vision. He had no idea where the attacks would come from, and could only dodge by instinct. At the same time, in Beige's eyes, it felt like he had been reborn. He had returned to the time when he was still the tower boss. And that day was also the day Baphomet had come to challenge him. Beige was stunned. He never expected something straight out of a novel to happen to him. "This time, I'll return every humiliation I suffered back to you, Baphomet." In reality, Baphomet had already dropped to one knee. After thinking for a moment, He realized dodging alone would not work anymore. Then I'll just use a little force to shatter this pathetic dream. Meanwhile, inside the dream, Beje could only defend against Baphomet's attacks. Beje could not understand it at all. I was clearly reborn, so why can this guy still break through my attacks so perfectly? Am I really destined to never defeat Baphomet? I had planned to play around a little, but forget it. It's time to go all out. Skill, ultimate, illusion, spatial magic. Extermination sanctuary, fly hell. Just as Beje was about to attack, the Baphomet inside the dream suddenly spoke. BJ, why did the ice cream die? BG instantly stopped moving. A confused look appeared on his face. I'll ask again. Why did the ice cream die? The words ice cream spun through BJ's mind like a spell. Damn it. Because it was too cold. BJ finally remembered. This was not a rebirth at all. Of course it wasn't. How could something that convenient exist? Baphomet had no talent for magic, and he was not exactly smart either. Yet even someone like him had still stolen BJ's boss position through sheer tactics. In an instant, brilliant light erupted from BJ's entire body. Baphomet, go after the one below. The source of his power is deep underground. After saying that, Beje gathered all his strength and slammed his fist into the ground. A massive hole was instantly blasted open beneath them. And that was not all. Ding, skill earthquake activated. The ground has been successfully broken through. Baphomet looked closely. Sure enough, he saw a golden object floating in midair. That must be the thing Beje was talking about. Baphomet did not hesitate at all. He immediately activated Adrenaline Level 2 and charged forward at full speed. The moment the spear tip struck, the golden sphere shattered on the spot. A beam of light shot straight into the sky. In that instant, everyone regained consciousness. Park Sia immediately told everyone, leave this place as fast as possible. But the people did not move. Their children were still trapped somewhere inside the building. Park Sia said firmly, please trust me. I will find the children. So hurry and get out of here. On the other side, after unleashing that full power strike, Beje had no magic power left. He weakly shouted, Baphomet, save me. Baphomet cursed under his breath. This is exactly why mages are all useless. He was about to move forward and catch Beje, but the two snake women appeared in front of Beje first. Seeing them, Beje froze, and his cries for help stopped at once. Baphomet's face remained expressionless. In the next second, he leaped forward at a speed ordinary people could not even follow. With one spear thrust, he blocked the snake women's attack with perfect accuracy. The snake women were knocked back and retreated to the Apostle of Lust's side. The Apostle of Lust spoke calmly. You really are smart. I lost. I underestimated you, Baphomet. Meanwhile, Park Sia staggered deeper into the building. Just then, a little girl trembled as she pleaded, please, help us. Park Sia immediately crouched down to check the girl's injuries and asked, where are the others? The little girl pointed in one direction. Park Sia looked where she was pointing and discovered that all the children were there. She was about to tell everyone to follow her and escape, but a massive figure suddenly appeared in front of her. It was Kanan. The moment Park Sia recognized her, tears of joy spilled from her eyes. Kanan, you're alive. But what came next was not the familiar embrace from the past. It was a tearing attack. Maybe this was the punishment she deserved. After ripping through Park Sia, Kaden did not stop. She kept running forward and finally came to a steady stop behind Lust. Lust spoke slowly. Kill him. Baphomet looked confused for a moment. Then he glanced at Kanan, and then at Park Sia, whose body was already half gone as she desperately held on. Only then did he realize it. She was being controlled. With the last of her strength, Park Sia begged him. Please kill Kanan. Because of my greed, too many people have already lost their lives. It's time to end this. Please, free her from this pain. Even if Park Sia had not said it, Baphomet would have found a way to take Kanan down. After all, she could no longer be called a companion. She was now a monster. To be honest, Kanan was one of the toughest opponents Baphomet had faced since becoming human. Her defense and attack power were both at an elite level. Unfortunately, the weapon Baphomet had just rented was destroyed again. This was seriously bad. At this rate, he'd probably lose his shirt paying them back. By now, Baphomet was completely furious. Damn it, it's only been a few days. In the next second, he threw a powerful punch. The force blasted Kanan several meters away. Compared to those awkward weapons, I really do prefer using my fists. Come on. Kanan opened her massive jaws, trying to swallow Baphomet whole. Baphomet stopped her with an upward kick. knocking her head into a daze. He immediately seized the opening and unleashed a fierce barrage of punches and kicks. But Kanan did not seem to feel any pain. Instead, she appeared to be charging something. In the next instant, a glow flashed. Baphomet was sent flying. Then countless black trees spread out from every direction, surrounding him completely. Deep within that darkness, a pair of crimson eyes locked onto Baphomet's every move. Relying on pure instinct, Baphomet blocked an incoming attack. He was about to counter, but the figure had already vanished, leaving 3 claw marks on his arm. When he looked closely, Kanan's entire body had turned silver white, and both her speed and power had risen dramatically. Even Baphomet could not take this lightly. At that moment, he thought to himself, I can't drag this out any longer. He immediately activated Adrenaline, along with Rave's special skill, Giga Blade. The moment those words fell, flames swallowed Kanan whole. Her screams rang out one after another. In a daze, Park Sea's figure flashed through Kanan's mind again. Destroy him, Kanan. That belief gave Kanan one final burst of strength at the edge of death. She bit down hard on Baphomet's arm. Giga Blade was forcibly interrupted, and Baphomet was trapped in her jaws, unable to break free. Damn it, is this a final burst before death? Rave's skill had clearly struck her vital point, yet it still failed to deal fatal damage. If even this move did not work, then Baphomet was almost guaranteed to lose. But suddenly, Baphomet's entire body trembled. No, why am I assuming that if Rave's skill fails, I will definitely lose? Memories began flashing through Baphomet's mind. Baphomet, with your current body, it is very easy for you to die. I still hope you can keep equipment on hand that actually suits you. Equipment. That's it. As long as I have a proper piece of equipment. Baphomet immediately opened his inventory and clicked on the locked weapon, but the system replied, equipment locked. This equipment cannot be used. He clicked again, only to receive the same cold message, equipment locked. This equipment cannot be used. After clicking it 81 times in a row, Baphomet finally stopped. He stood there glaring fiercely at Kanan and spoke to the system in a low voice. If I die, that would be pretty inconvenient for you too, wouldn't it? In the next second, light burst out and blasted both Baphomet and Kanan apart. You really are bold. I am a spirit weapon. It is still too early, but I will allow you to use me. Baphomet looked completely confused. Why is this weapon suddenly talking? I was clearly complaining to the system, so why is the spirit weapon the one answering me? But whatever, as long as I can use it, that's enough. With the weapon in hand, Baphomet only swung once, and Kanan was instantly sent flying several meters away. Her body was already covered in wounds. Seeing that opening, Baphomet immediately pressed the attack and leaped forward. He drove the sword deep into Kanan's body. Kanan let out a painful howl. That familiar figure appeared in her mind once more. Kanan, no, Black Snow, you don't have to keep fighting anymore. Come reunite with us. As the vision faded, Kanan's body had already been cut into countless pieces by Baphomet. Finally released from her suffering. Yes, she had finally been freed from that hellish battle. From now on, she no longer had to fight under the name Kanan. Instead, she would reunite with everyone as Black Snow, never to be separated again. After the battle ended, Baphomet quickly found the Apostle of Lust trying to run away. Hey, you exhibitionist, where do you think you're going in such a hurry? Sometime later, Ma Sung-eun rushed to the scene. He looked around at the mess, then rubbed his forehead helplessly. Explain this, Hunter Baphomet. What exactly happened here? Baphomet gritted his teeth, his irritation written all over his face. That's what I want to know. Not long ago, Baphomet had been in the middle of a fierce battle with the Apostle of Lust. The two snake women sensed that their master was in danger, so they immediately revealed their true forms and tried to hold Baphomet back. But how could they possibly be Baphomet's match? With one casual strike, Baphomet sent them crashing into the wall. Without the snake women protecting him, and with the source of his power already destroyed, Baphomet split Lust in half almost effortlessly. But the blood spray he expected never came. Instead, countless butterflies poured out from the wound. The butterflies slowly gathered in the air, forming 7 clones that surrounded Baphomet. This was Lust's all-purpose charm. Unfortunately, tricks like that did not work on Baphomet at all. With just one move, he found the real Apostle of Lust, trying to use the chaos for a sneak attack. Lust could not believe it. He actually resisted my temptation? This is not a human at all. This is a beast, stalking its prey. In that moment of hesitation, Baphomet swung his sword, and Lust's blood burst out. At the same time, The unconscious snake women sensed their master's life force fading. They revealed their true forms and charged at Baphomet again. The two snakes worked together. One moved to carry the Apostle of Lust away, while the other held Baphomet back to buy time for the escape. But to Baphomet, these were nothing more than petty tricks. With a single move, both snakes were badly wounded. Then Baphomet stood before Lust, and that memory that did not belong to him appeared in his mind once again. It was the memory of how Baphomet had been tortured by the Apostle of Lust and died miserably beneath his feet. Now the tables have turned. It's time for you to taste that pain too. With that, Baphomet charged up a slash. But then the white snake appeared again. It swallowed Baphomet into its mouth. Baphomet cursed under his breath. These damn snakes really can take a beating. During that brief opening, the other snake had already reached Lust and swallowed him in one bite. Baphomet had no intention of letting his prey escape. He grabbed his weapon and charged again. But once more, the white snake blocked him by biting down on him. Baphomet completely lost his temper and swung his blade with every ounce of strength he had. Thick smoke rose again from the already shattered ruins. When the smoke cleared, Baphomet climbed out of the rubble, but Lust had already disappeared. Just then, the snake woman's voice came from behind him again. What a shame. You must have prepared for this for quite a while. But it can't be helped. How could someone like you interfere with the noble work of our master? Hearing that, Baphomet looked up and burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, how ridiculous. In the next second, he turned around sharply. His sword fell, and the snake woman had no time to react. Her body was split in two on the spot. But one strike was nowhere near enough to calm the rage inside Baphomet. So he swung again and again, until the person in front of him was reduced to a pool of blood. After finishing it, Baphomet panted heavily, but the frustration and anger inside him still had nowhere to go. In the end, he could only let out another roar toward the sky. The next day, Baphomet was locked inside an observation room. The one interrogating him was, of course, Ma Song-un. After hearing Baphomet's explanation, Ma Song-un still remained suspicious. To be honest, I find that story hard to believe. And I'm pretty sure I've told you countless times. Once you notice danger, you retreat immediately and report to me. You little... Before he could finish, Baphomet interrupted him in a cold voice. Before I noticed the danger, it had already happened. Ma Song-un felt his heart shake. He could clearly sense that Baphomet's presence was growing stronger, to the point where he might soon slip out of control. Faced with a hound that was no longer loyal to its master, Ma Song-un hesitated for only 1 second. In the end, he decided to eliminate the problem before Baphomet became truly powerful. With that thought, Ma Song-un quietly gathered power in his hand and slowly approached Baphomet. But at that moment, a figure suddenly appeared behind Baphomet. It was the administrator. She slowly walked up to Ma Song-un and gently touched his cheek. At the same time, Kim Yun-so and the head nurse hurried to the interrogation room door, shouting for Dae-young to open it. Dae-young naturally refused, saying that unrelated personnel were not allowed to enter. But there was no way Kim Yun-so would just accept that. She directly lifted her own clothes and threatened that if Dae-young did not open the door, she would make sure she ended up on the news. Dae-young shook her head helplessly and had no choice but to let them in. They were allies after all. Sometimes you just have to turn a blind eye. But when the door opened, the violent scene they had imagined was nowhere to be seen. Instead, Ma Song-un was sitting collapsed on the floor, his face deathly pale. He kept shouting, "There's a ghost." A short while later, the two of them went to the break room. Ma Song-un explained everything that had just happened. "Yun-so, that red system window you told me about, I saw it too. Besides that, there was also a woman. She told me not to eliminate Baphomet, because she could help me achieve my goal." Halfway through speaking, Ma Song-un suddenly stopped. "Wait, does that person know my goal?" So he quickly changed his words. "That ghost was tempting me. Yes, tempting me. She said there was something special about room 302. Meanwhile, Baphomet had been released and leisurely returned home. Beige looked at Baphomet in surprise, a hint of panic rising inside him. Baphomet, you know how it is. A mage without magic power would only get in the way, so even if I stayed there, I wouldn't have been much help, right? I also think it's a shame that guy got away, but there will be another chance later." Baphomet shot BJ a vicious look and said in a low voice, "Hey, keep quiet." Suddenly, the spirit weapon appeared and urged Baphomet to begin testing it immediately. "Show your power. Only then will you be allowed to keep using my strength." Before it could finish speaking, Baphomet leaped up and grabbed the magic sword tightly. Beige watched from the side with deep admiration. To provoke Baphomet at a time like this, should I call this sword brave or just stupid? And so, under Beige's witness, Baphomet demonstrated a full tutorial on how to conquer a magic sword using modern technology. A short while later, the magic sword was trembling in fear and fully submitted. After the lecture ended, it said, "Baphomet, no, big brother, please take good care of me from now on." Meanwhile, somewhere inside a pool of blood, a stunning woman was soaking quietly. She had her eyes closed, resting in silence. Suddenly, an unfamiliar presence appeared out of nowhere. The woman fired without hesitation and blew its head apart. But the expected spray of blood never came. Instead, countless golden butterflies poured out. That's right, the visitor was the Apostle of Lust, who had barely escaped Baphomet with his life. "Long time no see, Peacemaker." The woman spoke calmly. "So it's you, Loki. What do you want?" Loki, the Apostle of Lust, smiled faintly. "I'd like to ask you for a favor." "A favor? Don't make me laugh. You've lost your power. What makes you think you still have the right to ask me for anything?" The pressure made Loki's chest ache. He quickly said, "That man is very handsome." Hearing that, the woman slowly stood up. She opened the information Loki had sent her. "Baphomet, first-class hunter. He does look pretty good. I like that tan skin. I wonder what your blood tastes like." A few days later, Beige was happily staring at the new phone Baphomet had just bought for him. Baphomet reminded him not to waste money, because the phone alone had already cost quite a bit. Beige cursed under his breath. What a cheapskate. What's the point of making so much money if we're not going to spend it? Also, why hasn't he installed an air conditioner at home? It's so hot every day. Baphomet was just about to explain that it was for environmental reasons, when the system suddenly sent him a message. It was a notification from the Hunter Center. Reisel's magic stone had been successfully auctioned off, and the final price was ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 800 million. The two of them could hardly believe their eyes. Beige immediately pointed toward the building behind them. "Baphomet, go buy that place right now." Baphomet was shocked. "Are you kidding me? That amount of money can't even buy a house in Sia City. But I do have a good idea. If we auction off your magic stone too, it should be worth quite a bit." Just then, a voice suddenly called out to Baphomet. "Hunter Baphomet, it has been a long time since we parted at the Maze Tower." Baphomet looked completely confused. The woman took off her sunglasses and said, "I'm Hunter Ripper. Do you still remember me?" A short while later, Hunter Ripper invited Baphomet and Beige to a high-end restaurant. The table was covered with an extravagant feast, making both of them swallow hard. It was their first time seeing such a luxurious dinner. Still, Baphomet suppressed his desire and said, "Tell me what you want. There is no way this is just a coincidence." Ripper smiled faintly. "As expected from someone who cleared the Maze Tower, you may not admit it, but I still want to ask you for a favor. Would you work as my mercenary for a while? And don't worry, I won't shortchange you on the payment." Baphomet closed his eyes and thought for a moment. "I can agree to work as your mercenary, but my fee is 800 million. Hearing that, BJ nearly spat out the food he had just put in his mouth. "After all, I don't know how dangerous this will be, so asking for more is reasonable." Before he could finish, Hunter Ripper said directly, "Sure, no problem." Since she agreed so easily, both Baphomet and BJ were left stunned. "Are you rich or something?" Hunter Ripper replied calmly. "You're asking if I have money? Actually, this hotel belongs to my family." The moment she said that, Hunter Ripper's image in Baphomet and Beige's eyes completely changed. "Rich? Filthy rich. The tower we're going to clear is called the Holy Land Tower." Without wasting time, the two of them immediately went to the Hunter Center to apply for entry into the tower, but their request was rejected on the spot. This made Baphomet furious. "If you won't let us in, are you going to pay me the 800 million? The receptionist was on the verge of tears, because no matter how she explained it, Baphomet always snapped back with another retort. Just then, team leader Hyo appeared behind them and said calmly, "Allow me to explain. It really has been a while, Mr. Fraud. No, I suppose I should call you Hunter Baphomet now." A little while later, team leader Hyo invited the two of them into a meeting room and roughly explained the situation. In simple terms, people had already entered this tower, but they were now trapped inside. Because of that, the Hunter Center had changed the mission name to Support Operation. As elite hunters, Hunter Baphomet and Hunter Ripper were both fully qualified to participate. Baphomet gave a faint smile, but he thought to himself, "I have a strong feeling this damn guy is setting a trap for me, but I have no proof." At that moment, Hunter Ripper asked which hunters they were supposed to support. Team leader Hyo did not hide it. "One of them is S-rank hunter Daho Jiyu. the right-hand man of the Sunland Guild's guildmaster. Another is A-rank Hunter Naraya, a summoner. And the last one is Hunter Graven, Rave's younger brother, and currently the highest valued hunter. Baphomet was shocked. He had not expected to hear a familiar name here. A few days later, the support operation officially began. Ripper and Baphomet arrived at the meeting point 10 minutes early. The two began comparing the supplies they had brought. Hunter Ripper had brought a massive amount of potions and scrolls. First came the essential supplies, then water and food. She had prepared enough for one person to survive for 3 years. Baphomet stared at her blankly. "Are you planning to go on vacation in there?" Ripper explained. "After all, even an S-rank hunter has been inside for a full month without clearing it, so there's nothing wrong with preparing extra." Then it was Baphomet's turn. Not only had he barely brought anything, he had even set a condition for himself. After entering the tower, he would avoid using both passive and active skills as much as possible, because only then could he truly improve his strength. Ripper was completely speechless after hearing that, but she had no choice except to let him do whatever he wanted. Just then, a woman descended from the sky. She was the third member of this support operation, A-rank Hunter Jest. She had 2 goals in this mission. First, rescue the trapped hunters. Second, monitor Baphomet. Baphomet naturally knew why she was here, so he did not bother showing her any kindness. "You're the one team leader Hio sent to keep an eye on me, aren't you?" Ripper immediately glared at Baphomet, then said, "Welcome, Hunter Jest." After that small incident, the 3 of them looked up at the tower, floating in the air. While everyone was still unsure what to do, Jest pointed towards something nearby that looked like a portal. Jest took the lead and jumped into the portal without hesitation. Ripper, however, stood there hesitating. Seeing that, Baphomet simply picked her up over his shoulder and jumped into the portal with her. In the end, they landed safely and successfully reached the first floor. The place was pitch black and eerily quiet. In the center, there was only a mechanism that looked like an activation device. While everyone was still discussing what to do, Baphomet had already pressed his hand onto the mechanism. Ripper was shocked. "Can't you at least discuss it with us first?" Ding! First stage of the Holy Land Tower trial activated. Eliminate all monsters within 10 minutes. In an instant, countless monsters poured out of the portals. Baphomet smiled calmly and pulled the magic sword from his inventory. As expected, this kind of direct fight feels the best. A moment later, with overwhelming strength, Baphomet instantly slaughtered every monster. Hunter Jest and Hunter Ripper did not even get a chance to move. All they could do was watch Baphomet's performance in shock. Ding! Conditions met. Please proceed to the next floor. When they reached the second floor, the familiar activation mechanism was waiting there again. Baphomet once again reached out to press it. But this time, Ripper stopped him. "You seriously need to discuss things with us first." Baphomet looked confused. "Discuss what? This button is exactly the same as the last one, and didn't the system window already explain it? We just need to kill all the monsters within the time limit." Jest thought about it and nodded. Hunter Baphomet has a point. "I think the advanced team may have gotten stuck on one floor because of the time limit." Ripper explained, "Even if that's true, shouldn't we consider our own safety first?" Baphomet immediately shot back. "Then why did you drag me into the maze tower back then?" Ripper was instantly left speechless, even though she had been trying to shift the blame for what happened before. Ripper protested, "I was simply shocked by what I saw. That's all." Baphomet was completely speechless. "Lady, we're clearing a tower right now. We're not on vacation." Ripper ignored him and asked Baphomet to take photos for her, saying she wanted to include them in her book. At that moment, Jest looked to the other side and noticed a mechanism completely different from the ones before. Jest thought to herself, "It seems this floor will be very different." Baphomet casually took 2 photos. Then he handed the phone back to Ripper. "Alright, that's enough tourist photos. Let's get started." After saying that, Baphomet pressed the mechanism without hesitation. The mechanism began to hum. Ding! Stage 20 of the Holy Land Tower trial has begun. Time limit, 20 minutes. Eliminate the monster Dogmar. Penalty: if the mission fails, all floors will reset, and the challengers must start again from the first floor. Baphomet's expression darkened. "Damn it, I don't know who owns this tower, but this rule is disgusting." The battle broke out immediately. Baphomet charged forward with the magic sword in hand, but his attack was blocked by a golden barrier. Even someone as strong as Baphomet could not force his way through it. Seeing this, Jest and Ripper also stepped forward to help. Unfortunately, it did not make any difference. No matter how the 3 of them attacked, the barrier did not change at all. Only when there were 10 seconds left did cracks finally appear in the barrier. Baphomet seized the chance and transformed the magic sword into a magic bow. He fired an arrow, and it shot straight toward the monster Dogmar. Ding! 1 second remaining. At that critical moment, a massive hand appeared out of nowhere and instantly flattened Dogmar. Baphomet was stunned. Then, he flew into a rage. Which bastard did that? That was supposed to be my final hit. When he looked closely, he saw that it was a stone giant. It did not look like a monster. Looking more carefully, he realized someone was standing beside it. That person removed her cloak, revealing a face weathered by battle, yet still beautiful. Jest recognized her at once. "Isn't that Hunter Naraya?" Baphomet shouted angrily at the woman. "Hey you, I was just about to finish it off. Why did you suddenly show up?" Naraya did not answer. She staggered and collapsed to the ground. Baphomet said irritably, "What are you doing? Trying to scam me now?" Ripper shot Baphomet an annoyed look and hurried over to check Naraya's condition. "Wait, is Hunter Naraya injured? I'm so hungry. Give me food." After saying that, Naraya's eyes rolled back and she fainted again. A few hours later, Hunter Naraya finally recovered and began devouring the food Ripper had brought out. The happiness on her face was impossible to hide. "This is so good. I haven't had carbs in 2 whole weeks." Ripper looked confused. "Hunter Naraya, why didn't you retreat first? Gather supplies, and then continue?" The moment that topic came up, Naraya looked utterly fed up. "It's all because those 2 men have way too much pride. I had no choice but to come down alone. And that was when I happened to run into you guys." Jest raised a question. "Then why didn't you use the teleportation device to return?" Naraya was about to explain, but Baphomet spoke first. "Because she can't use it inside this tower." Hearing that, Naraya looked at Baphomet suspiciously, then admitted, "He's right. I really can't use it." "Then which floor did Hunter Naraya come down from?" Naraya thought back for a moment. "The 49th floor. There may be even more floors after that. According to the investigation, this tower should have more than 100 floors." As she spoke, Naraya suddenly looked at Baphomet with a playful expression. "By the way, what type is this handsome hunter?" Baphomet replied, "Warrior type. And your height. Also, what kind of equipment do you mainly use?" Baphomet was clearly getting impatient and snapped, "I can use every weapon. Why do you have so many questions?" Naraya made an okay gesture. "Perfect. Thanks to all of you, our chances of clearing this place just went up. Everyone, come over here." Ripper looked confused. "What do you mean?" Naraya explained, "The skill I'm about to show you is my image. Inside towers, it is called a stage 0 inmate technique. You could even say this skill is how I made it onto the Vigi Hunter ranking." "Alright, everyone hold hands. Then silently think of the place you want to go." 2 of the 3 were completely lost, and Baphomet looked especially annoyed. "What nonsense are you talking about?" But before he could finish, green light suddenly spread beneath their feet. Skill: Spatial Summoning Magic. Reverse Warlock. Felt Space Gate. When Baphomet opened his eyes again, a long sword was already pressed against his throat. Naraya hurried forward. She quickly explained the situation to Graven. But Graven still did not fully believe her. His expression remained cold, and he clearly wanted to kill the person in front of him. Fortunately, Hunter Jiyu noticed what was happening nearby. A short while later, Hunter Jiyu was devouring the food so eagerly that he nearly forgot all his dignity as a senior. Luckily, Naraya reminded him from the side. Once he had eaten and drunk his fill, Hunter Jiyu finally began explaining. The reason they were stuck here was that this floor had 2 doors, and each door contained 1 monster. As for why they had not cleared it yet, Baphomet and the others would understand after going in once. Baphomet looked confused, but he still did as told. He pushed open the door. Inside, only 1 monster stood silently in place. A moment later, Baphomet kicked the door open in irritation. "What the hell? That thing was way too weak." As soon as he said that, he saw Graven already waiting for him. Naraya explained, "Hunter Baphomet, you came out 1 minute later than Hunter Graven." Baphomet immediately cut her off. "No, do it again. There's no way I was slower than that guy." As he spoke, Baphomet suddenly realized something was wrong. The monster has already been killed, so why hasn't the floor cleared? Is there another condition? Hunter Gu said calmly, "Because the 2 doors are linked. You 2 have to eliminate the monsters inside both rooms at the exact same time. Not even a 0.1 second difference is allowed. It has to be simultaneous. So now, we officially begin the coordinated operation between Hunter Graven and Hunter Baphomet." A moment later, Baphomet began thinking of solutions. "What if we set an alarm and attack the moment it rings?" Naraya immediately shot that down. "That won't work. The room is special, and all electronic devices are unusable inside. Then we should attack the monster immediately after entering." Hunter Gu shook his head at that too. "That won't work either, because everyone's strength is different." Baphomet suggested, "Then what if we weaken the monsters first?" Before he could finish, Graven interrupted him. "We should do it our way. We understand this tower better than you, so you're telling me to shut up and do whatever you say. Graven's face turned cold. The fact that you managed to twist my words into that is honestly impressive. The two of them immediately started arguing back and forth, with no sign of teamwork at all. Seeing this, Hunter Gu took off his gear. He cracked his knuckles and said, "You two are way too fired up. Fight me and cool your heads." Naturally, Baphomet and Graven refused without hesitation. Hunter Gu's gaze sharpened. "What? You two don't have the confidence to beat me together? Looks like A-rank hunters really are cowards." The moment he said that, both of them glared with murderous intent. Their killing intent began spilling out uncontrollably. A short while later, Baphomet and Graven were both lying on the ground. As expected of an S-rank hunter, even while holding back, he could still beat A-ranks into the dirt. Hearing the commotion, Ripper and the others came over to check, and were left completely confused. They had no idea what happened, but after getting beaten up, the two of them seemed much more obedient. Baphomet even took the initiative and suggested, "I'll just copy Hunter Graven's movements." Graven was a little surprised by that, but since Baphomet had already taken a step back, he had no reason to keep pushing. So Graven picked up a wooden stick. He demonstrated the sword technique he used most often. One clean motion, one clean strike, with no wasted movement at all. Baphomet took the wooden stick. Everyone thought he would need quite some time to copy it, but Baphomet only watched it once. Then he perfectly recreated Graven's sword technique. It was not just similar, it was exactly the same, shocking everyone present. At this rate, they would probably find a way to clear the floor very soon. But in reality, things were not that simple. For some reason, Baphomet was always one step slower than Graven. Even after they tried again and again, the closest 17 attempts only allowed them to come out of the rooms at the same time, but they still failed to defeat the monsters at the exact same moment. After who knew how long, Naraya finally interrupted them. By this point, both of them were completely exhausted and badly needed rest. Otherwise, they would not be able to continue with the rooms ahead. Graven mocked him under his breath. As expected, I should have been the one matching your timing. Baphomet was about to lose his temper, but Graven had already walked away without looking back. Just then, Ripper handed Baphomet a bottle of water and called out to him. "Hunter Baphomet, I'll still pay you the agreed amount, even if you give up halfway." Baphomet glanced sideways at Ripper. "What are you talking about? Even if it's only because I hate losing, I'm seeing this through." Hearing that, Ripper had no idea what to say, and the air fell briefly silent. After a long while, Ripper spoke again. "Actually, I entered the towers for two reasons. One is archaeology. The other is that I want this war to end as soon as possible. In my eyes, not all monsters are evil. If both sides keep dragging this out, how long will the war continue? 10 years? 20 years? Will it still be going even after we all die of old age? Hunter Baphomet, you once said monsters are weapons that only exist to kill humans without purpose. But I don't think so. They have self-awareness too. They have their own history. As long as we properly investigate each tower and understand the truth behind them, we will definitely find an answer. An answer that can end this war peacefully." Baphomet replied calmly. "How boring." After saying that, he turned his head away, completely ignoring Ripper as she awkwardly muttered to herself. "Seriously, why is the 49th floor this hard? It's not like they can share thoughts through telepathy." The moment she said that, Baphomet suddenly understood. He sprang to his feet and pointed at Ripper. "That's it. That's the one." Ripper jumped in surprise. "What are you talking about?" A moment later, Baphomet found Graven and Naraya, saying he wanted to try again. Seeing Baphomet's condition, Naraya looked worried and reminded him that he could rest a little longer. Baphomet said, "There's no need." Naraya had no choice but to tell Graven to get ready as well. Then, the two doors opened, and both of them stepped inside at the same time. Everyone thought this attempt would fail again, but in the next second, light suddenly burst from the doors. At the same time, the system voice rang out. "Ding! Joint monster elimination successful. Generating entrance to the 50th floor." When the two came out, Naraya immediately asked, "How did you do it?" Baphomet spoke slowly. "You were right. The monsters did need to be killed at the same time. More accurately, the time spent killing them had to be identical. Let's say the room Hunter Graven entered is room A, and the room I entered is room B. A and B do not move in perfect sync. More specifically, B reacts according to the connected thread of magic power. Its movement is like a puppet on strings, with an extremely tiny delay between them. To feel that small delay, I entered the room in an unconscious state this time. Once the magic power around me started to boil, I attacked using Hunter Graven's sword technique, and that naturally cleared the floor. After hearing that, Naraya smiled calmly. As expected of Hunter Baphomet, your judgment is truly professional. Baphomet accepted the praise without a shred of modesty. That's right, I really am that amazing. After that small incident, the group calmly entered the door leading to the next floor. Light flashed. When they opened their eyes again and saw their surroundings, shock appeared on everyone's faces. Baphomet looked completely confused. Isn't it just a ruined city? Why is everyone acting so shocked? Suddenly, countless monsters began pouring out around them. They were not especially strong. Most of them could be dealt with in a single strike. Yes, they can be killed with one move, but this ruined city, the endless monsters, and the desperate screams of ordinary people. Why does it all feel strangely familiar? Baphomet still looked lost, with no idea what was happening. But Ripper was already trembling all over, muttering to herself again and again, why would something like this happen? Graven appeared behind Baphomet and said coldly, how could you not know? You understand her so well, yet you still didn't notice. This place is recreating the gate impact. A little while later, the group roughly figured out how to clear this floor. Simply put, they had to find the survivors and bring them to the designated safe zone. Once a survivor entered the safe zone, they would turn into data and disappear. There had been 10 survivors on this floor, and 9 remained. Clearly, this was not going to be easy. At that moment, Graven pointed at the next stage displayed by the system and asked Naraya, do you know what this means? Naraya shook her head. Baphomet shook off the sweat that had not yet dried on him and spoke slowly. The next stage probably means the next floor. What I mean is, if I were the tower boss, I would not build such a massive virtual world just to use it once. It will most likely be reused later, with the contents changed each time. Hearing Baphomet speak with such certainty, Naraya fell into thought. Hunter Baphomet, you really are calm. You must have experienced the gate impact too, right? Just being inside this virtual space is already painful for everyone else, but you seem like you have never experienced it at all. Baphomet had nothing to say to that. After all, how could he have experienced something like the gate impact? A moment later, Naraya walked over to Ripper and comforted her wounded heart. Ripper's expression was complicated, caught somewhere between fear and guilt, and she did not even dare look at Naraya. Naraya smiled faintly and began telling her own story. I remember that when the gate impact happened, I had just gotten married. That day, my husband and I were on a date at a department store. Then, the building suddenly collapsed and pinned him down. On that day, heaven favored me. I awakened as a hunter, and with that power, we escaped danger. But the scene from that day never left my mind. Screams and cries kept ringing out all around me, but for my own selfish desire, I ignored those calls for help. I was already on the verge of breaking down, but my husband comforted me like this. What are you talking about? You didn't just save me. You also saved our child. That was the first life you protected after gaining power. So from that day on, I decided to become a hunter and save even more people. I'm saying this, not because I know what happened to you, Hunter Ripper. But aren't we hunters clearing these towers so innocent people never have to experience the gate impact again? That's why we need to clear this tower as quickly as possible and keep people away from danger. Just then, Jest suddenly interrupted Naraya. Wait, Hunter Naraya is married and has a child, and the gate impact happened about 10 years ago. So your age? Naraya patted her chest. My age? I'm 40 this year. The two of them were shocked. Meanwhile, Baphomet leaned against the wall, silently thinking about something. After some time, everyone worked together and finally delivered the last survivor to the safe zone. The system prompt rang out. Ding, conditions met. Moving to the next stage. As soon as the voice faded, light flashed. When they opened their eyes again, the surroundings had changed. Just as Baphomet had predicted, they were still inside a virtual recreation of the gate impact. Only the location had changed, and the number of survivors had dropped from 10 to 9. It seemed that with every new stage, the number of survivors they needed to rescue would decrease, while the monsters would grow stronger. But it still had not reached a level they could not handle. To improve efficiency, the group eventually split into 3 teams. The 2 A-rank hunters each led a group. Naraya stayed on standby at the safe point, and the S-rank hunter moved alone. Just like that, they quickly cleared 6 floors in a row. Then, on the 57th floor, something unexpected happened. Baphomet and Graven successfully found a survivor. But that survivor turned out to be Hunter Rave, Graven's older brother. Meanwhile, Ripper and Jest encountered a powerful monster. The two of them struggled hard before finally defeating it. Unfortunately, Hunter Jest was injured in the process and had no choice but to return to the base point for treatment from Naraya. Naraya examined her carefully and determined that she had been hit with paralysis poison, and a very unusual type at that. Still, it was not impossible to treat. With that, she summoned one of her creatures and had it treat Jest. Then, Naraya herself headed out again with Ripper to continue searching for survivors. On the way, Ripper said Naraya was a very cute person, and even her summoned creature was cute too. Naraya explained that it was all because of her son. Her summoned creatures had not always been that cute. In fact, they used to look downright terrifying. Her young son had once been frightened by them. So from that day on, the summoned creatures changed themselves into cuter forms. That is the bond between a summoner and their summons. The stronger the bond, the more power they can bring out. Just like a hunter's weapon mastery. Ripper smiled faintly. So that's how it works. Just then, they finally found a survivor. It was a little girl. Naraya gently told the girl to come with them to the safe zone. The little girl trembled and pleaded. "My leg is injured. I can't move." Naraya opened her arms and said warmly, "Don't worry, Auntie will carry you." "How old are you?" "You look about the same age as my son." Watching that warm scene, Ripper's lips curved upward without her realizing it. But in the next second, warm blood splashed onto Ripper's face. Confused, she opened her eyes. Then, she saw the scene she least wanted to see. Hunter Naraya had been pierced through, and blood was pouring out of her body. The curiosity on Ripper's face instantly turned into fear and panic. In a broken voice, she called out, "Hunter Naraya." On the other side, Baphomet's sharp senses seemed to catch a loud impact. His head instinctively turned toward Ripper's direction. It doesn't seem like anything is wrong, he thought. So he lowered his gaze again and looked at the young Rave. A few hours earlier, when Baphomet learned that this kid was Rave, he had been completely shocked. There's no way to compare them at all. Even their hair colors are different. Did Rave dye his hair later? But that doesn't make sense either. By that logic, did Hunter Graven dye his hair too? Just then, the system alert rang out. Ding. Emergency mission. Multiple monsters will appear soon. Please protect the survivor. As soon as the voice ended, countless monsters appeared out of nowhere, and every one of them was high rank. Seeing this, Baphomet and the others had no choice but to avoid a direct clash for now while searching for the safe zone. But the system seemed to be interfered with by something and still could not display the safe zone's location. Graven could only suggest that they return to the base point first. The moment he heard that, Rave shouted no and begged the two of them, "Please, save my family first." Graven clenched his teeth as a deep sense of frustration surged inside him. At that moment, Baphomet noticed a flaw. "You seem to have self-awareness again. Normally an NPC should only say fixed lines like 'save me.' But don't worry. This hunter is your younger brother. How should I explain this? Right. It's like those web novels Bihei has been reading lately. He came from the future to save you. In the future, your little brother becomes a hunter." Rave froze after hearing that. "You're saying Soo-hyuk became a hunter? How is that possible?" Soo-hyuk would never dye his hair such a flashy color. The moment he said that, Baphomet nearly lost it and almost laughed out loud. Graven could only explain helplessly. "This is albinism. It appeared after the gate impact." Just as he finished explaining, another swarm of monsters suddenly appeared around them. Baphomet cursed under his breath, then tossed the concealment device to Rave and told him, "Hide inside the building." Rave did not hesitate. He took the device and ran into the building. A moment later, Rave reached the inside of the building and set up the device. He thought that would be enough to hide from the monsters. But right in front of him, a hologram suddenly appeared, clearly showing how his parents had been brutally killed by monsters. The young Rave in the vision slowly broke down, tears sliding down his cheeks. In the next second, blue flames shot into the sky. Baphomet and Graven both froze. The young Rave before them was slowly turning into Rave at his peak, while shouting, "I'll kill everyone here." In a single instant, Baphomet and Graven did not even have time to react. Raging flames had already erupted behind them, burning every monster to ash. Seeing that scene, Graven finally remembered everything. The reason he had survived the gate impact back then was because his brother had awakened by accident. Back then, the hand Rave reached out with carried his resolve to protect his family. But now, he was roaring that he would kill everyone. Baphomet smiled faintly. It was not mockery. It was hunger for battle and joy at being able to fight Rave again. Ding. Emergency Mission 2. Eliminate Monster Rave number 21. Meanwhile, Ripper was desperately running while carrying the badly wounded Naraya. As long as they reached the base point, they would be safe. But the system's voice struck her like a hammer. Ding. Until Monster Grave number 17 is successfully eliminated, this area will be completely cut off from the outside. Ahead was a sealed path, and behind them was the monster chasing them down. Ripper felt crushed by the pressure. There was nowhere to run. Suddenly, monster number 17 leaped into the air. It fired a laser straight at Ripper. At the critical moment, Ripper pulled out a legendary defensive item she had been saving for a long time. The shield of the divine deer. She blocked the attack with ease. Inside the protected space, Ripper took out the high-grade healing potion she had prepared and poured it over Naraya's wound. But it had no effect at all. Naraya's eyes gradually began to lose focus. Ripper could not believe what she was seeing. Why is this happening? Why is the potion useless? Is Hunter Naraya going to leave me just like my mother did back then? Hunter, Ripper, I'm fine. I'm just glad you're safe. So, please, run. Hearing that, Ripper's eyes sharpened. Shut up. Aren't you a hunter? Your heart is still beating. This is just a small wound, so please don't give up. Do you want your son to become a child without a mother? After saying that, Ripper once again took a legendary item from her inventory, Ferris's pocket watch. Its effect was to stop time in the current space. Once that was done, Ripper slowly stood up. Please wait here for me. I absolutely won't let you die here. Outside the divine shield, monster number 17 was still pounding against the indestructible defensive item, just as it was trying to figure out how to break through. The door opened on its own, revealing Ripper's ice-cold face. The battle erupted instantly. On one side was a monster that enjoyed playing with lives, and on the other was a hunter fighting with the will to protect. Clearly, the outcome had been decided from the very beginning. Ding! Skill activated. Arachne's refuge. In a single instant, the surroundings turned pitch black. Ripper's figure kept appearing throughout the space. Monster number 17 tried to attack, but it was like trying to hit a ghost. None of its strikes could reach her. By the time it realized what was happening, its body was already covered in countless threads. Seeing that the timing was right, Ripper removed the final thread from her hair. Her hair fell loose around her. I'm not good at fighting, and I don't want to fight. I've always hoped for peace to come, but that doesn't mean I can't fight. Thank you for becoming such fine nourishment for peace. Ding. Mission successful. Monster grave number 17 has been eliminated. The separated space has returned to normal. Looking at the monster that had been torn apart, Ripper fell into thought. Just then, the shadowy figure appeared behind her. Hypocrite. Even so, the things you've done will never disappear. Ripper was startled and quickly turned around, but there was nothing behind her. She had no time to worry about it and immediately rushed toward Naraya. Naraya assured her, I'm fine. I'll recover after resting properly for a few days. But what is that blue wall behind us? Ripper turned around and saw that a wall had indeed appeared behind them. A bad feeling immediately rose inside her. Could temporary missions have been triggered in other places too? On the other side, the mindless Rave swung with full force at Baphomet and Gravin. The two hurriedly jumped away to dodge. But the instant Gravin landed, Rave was already right in front of him. He gripped his sword, ready to pierce straight through Gravin. But then a familiar voice came from behind him. That won't do. Your opponent should be me. In the next second, Rave swung his sword with full force and knocked away the weapon flying toward him. That's right. The attack had come from Baphomet. Long time no see. No, even if you're just an undead now, I never thought I'd meet you again. Since we've crossed paths, I need to show some sincerity. After all, I can't afford to be careless when facing Rave. Ding. Locked passive skill has been activated. You may now use the locked active skill. The system voice cut off abruptly. Baphomet's aura surged violently. In the next second, the battle erupted, and the two instantly clashed. The scene was almost exactly like the fight from back then. Baphomet smiled faintly. This is fun. Use a little more strength. Make this even more enjoyable for me. With that, Baphomet transformed his short sword into a great sword. Then, he slashed down. Rave had no time to block with his sword. The two of them crashed into another brutal exchange. After who knew how long, Baphomet suddenly stopped moving. The fight was clearly enjoyable, yet some strange feeling was getting in the way of that pleasure. It's this pathetically weak body of mine. It's absolutely awful. If this were the old me, I never would have been beaten like this. This is a perfect chance, and there won't be a third or fourth one. But even if I had many more chances, the result probably wouldn't change. Even back then, Baphomet had known the truth. I only killed Rave by using the tower's advantage. If we had fought under completely equal conditions, the one getting beaten down would probably have been me. So what exactly was I so proud of? I am clearly this weak right now, but so what if I'm weak? In battle, am I the kind of guy who hesitates and overthinks everything? Of course not. No matter who stands before me, I charge in without holding anything back. That is who I am. That is Lord Baphomet of the Tower. As that thought settled in, a terrifying aura began rising behind Baphomet. Even Rave, who was in the middle of fighting him, felt a chill and started trembling uncontrollably. When he looked back, a familiar scene appeared once again. The Tower Lord who refused to surrender, even while being burned by flames. Baphomet. Ding. Activating Lord Baphomet's special skill. Advantage 2 Conquest. Limited to the current tower, you have a 15% chance to hack into this tower's system and use it during the clear. Skill activated successfully. Due to low level, activation is unstable, range is limited, and unknown consequences may occur. As the skill level increases, its range will expand and you will be able to conquer the entire tower. Raise your level and seize the throne. Then, with your own power, ascend to an even higher throne. The moment Lord Baphomet's aura spread, Graven witnessed a scene he would never forget for the rest of his life. Because he saw Rave trembling in fear. Graven had never seen Rave like this before. Not when Rave was caught in the gate impact and awakened. And not when he cleared a solo tower by himself. The only thing Graven had ever felt from Rave was anger. But now, the tip of Rave's blade was shaking. Those furious eyes were showing another emotion for the first time. He was afraid. Afraid of Baphomet. At that moment, Graven stared at the monster before him, whose aura was exactly the same as Baphomet's, and finally understood everything. So you really are that Baphomet. That shout successfully drew Rave's attention. Su Hyuk, is that you? Why am I here? This makes no sense. I should already be dead. Baphomet threw his head back and laughed. That's right. This is how it should be. Now this is fair. It even read my data. Not bad for a system. With my power, I can finally enjoy fighting Rave to my heart's content. But before he could finish speaking, several magic circles appeared behind Baphomet out of thin air. It was Baphomet's doing, but at the same time it was not. Because right now, Baphomet could not control his own body at all. Chains shot out from the magic circles. Both of them were blasted several meters away. Rave said to Graven, I want to understand what is going on too, but be careful. He is the myth rank boss of the Abyss Tower. If I had not cleared that tower back then, it might have become the strongest tower still standing. With your current strength, it is too early for you to face him. But before Rave could finish, Graven cut him off coldly. Shut up. I'll judge that for myself. Also, the enemy I need to eliminate in this tower is you, so you should watch yourself too. With that, Graven lowered his stance, preparing to test Baphomet's strength. But Baphomet only waved his hand casually. Graven was tossed aside like a helpless chick. Humiliated like that, Graven could no longer hold back. He gripped his sword and rushed in again. Using his speed advantage, he launched a rapid series of slashes. But Baphomet simply stood in place with no intention of dodging. Or rather, he did not need to. Baphomet threw his head back and roared again. The pressure of a monarch fully manifested. Graven was crushed in place by that aura, unable to move, his heart shaken. So this is myth rank power. Just as Baphomet was about to reach out with his claw and choke Graven to death, Rave stepped in and blocked the attack. You are exactly the same as when I last saw you. You have not grown at all. Is it because your goal, meaning me, died? But Rave gave Graven no time to react. He gripped his sword and charged straight at Baphomet. Deep inside his own mind, Baphomet could not understand why this was happening. Why is this happening? Is it because of the low-level side effect the system mentioned earlier? In the next second, the battle erupted completely. As they clashed, Baphomet sensed more and more that something was off. As expected of Rave. Even as a simulated virtual being, he's still this powerful. But Baphomet was not easy to deal with either. And for a while, neither side could gain the upper hand. Baphomet thought to himself, this can't continue. His eyes sharpened, and he quickly located the one who had been hiding and watching since the battle began. He swung his sword, successfully piercing the target. The boss lost its vision. Rave murmured, I'm clearly already dead, yet I can still feel like I'm alive right now. I see. This tower's system read my data just to use me as a monster. You damn monster. How dare you do this? In that case, there's only one way to end it. Baphomet was shocked. He clearly understood what Rave was thinking. Rave had to die again. Ding. Mission complete. Monster number 21 has been eliminated. Current floor cleared. The usable range of conquest does not include the next floor. Ending current skill. Rave, what the hell are you doing? With his chest pierced through, Rave grabbed Baphomet by the collar. Baphomet, you became human. Now that is strange. But as long as missions exist, anything is possible. After all, I followed missions all the way to where I am now. Still, looking at you, you have no idea how to use that body properly. That is my body, you bastard. Hearing that, Baphomet was stunned. What did you just say? A short while later, everyone returned to the base point. Hunter GU also said, I encountered a final monster too, but I blew its head off with one punch. At least for now, the floor has been cleared. At that moment, Ripper looked at Naraya's body and could not hide her worry. Hunter Naraya's condition was extremely bad. Although emergency measures had been taken, she clearly could not keep climbing the tower. Naraya insisted, I'm fine. I can still continue. Hunter GU's face darkened, as if he had made a difficult decision. After a long pause, he finally said, We're leaving. Your body matters most. Naraya looked upset and still tried to persuade him, but Hunter GU's attitude was firm. But just then, Baphomet spoke up. I'm not leaving. Ripper was shocked and was about to persuade him, but Baphomet silenced her with a single glare. Ripper immediately stopped talking. At that moment, Gravin also spoke up. I'm not leaving either. There are still things I need to investigate. As he spoke, Gravin stared straight at Baphomet, just felt guilty, and said, It's because I got injured that Hunter Naraya ended up badly hurt, so I will leave the tower with the others. Then Hunter GU turned to Ripper. Ripper glanced at Baphomet beside her. In the end, she could only sigh helplessly and say, I will continue climbing the tower. As soon as he finished speaking, a hand rose from behind the crowd, saying, I want to keep climbing too. When everyone looked closely, it was actually the peacemaker who had met with Lust earlier. However, her current identity was a hunter disguised as part of Support Team 2, using the codename Goblin. Seeing that everyone had finished splitting into groups, Hunter GU did not stay any longer. He led the others to activate the teleportation device and return to town. Meanwhile, Baphomet's group stepped through the portal and continued toward the next floor. Ripper had originally planned to stay with Baphomet and rely on the supplies she carried to hold out until Hunter GU returned to the tower. But these people were like lunatics. They kept climbing without stopping at all. Finally, when they reached the 89th floor, Ripper completely snapped and shouted, Please, can we rest for a moment? Then she took out a magic item from her inventory, the golden incense burner, and began recovering her stamina. Taking that chance, everyone introduced themselves to Hunter Goblin. Hunter Goblin explained, I was commissioned by the Solomon Guild to provide support. Later, while climbing the tower, I happened to run into Hunter GU and eventually joined up with the main group. Baphomet said calmly, So where are your teammates? You didn't come up here alone, did you? Under Baphomet's gaze, Hunter Goblin shyly adjusted her hair. Then she explained, The hunters who came with me fell into a monster's trap and died. The monster's attack was so sudden that they had no time to react. I barely survived myself. Baphomet mocked them inwardly. These guys are even worse than the advanced team. Too weak. Ripper stopped Baphomet before he could keep insulting them, completely unaware of the murderous look rising in Hunter Goblin's eyes behind her. A little while later, the group continued clearing floors and reached the 99th floor, where they ran into another problem. Two doors appeared in front of them. Baphomet suggested, Let's split into two teams, pairing close-range and long-range fighters together. He looked at the two people behind him. On one side was Hunter Ripper, who was angry for some reason. On the other was Hunter Goblin, who looked obedient and harmless. Baphomet froze for a moment. If I have to choose, I'd obviously rather go with Hunter Goblin. Ripper was shocked and loudly asked, Why? Baphomet's explanation was perfectly reasonable, because you almost cut me in half with your wire earlier. Ripper had nothing to say to that. In the end, the teams were decided, and Baphomet and Hunter Goblin immediately headed toward the door on the left. As Hunter Goblin passed by Ripper, she gave her a mocking smile. That made Ripper extremely annoyed, and she snapped, What is with that woman's look? A moment later, the two entered the room. Inside was a long tunnel, perfect for doing something no one else was supposed to see. In the next second, Baphomet raised his sword and thrust it straight at Hunter Goblin. Hunter Goblin hurriedly stepped back and barely dodged the strike. All right, stop pretending. It's just the two of us here. For an assassin, you're terrible at hiding your killing intent. Perfect timing too. Taking my anger out on those tin cans was getting boring. From now on, wash your neck and wait for me to cut it. Since her identity had been exposed, Hunter Goblin no longer bothered pretending. She pulled out a machine gun and aimed it at Baphomet. But Baphomet was faster. His sword came down first. Hunter Goblin immediately drew a dagger to block. While blocking the strike, she smoothly pulled out a pistol and fired. Baphomet raised his short sword and deflected the bullet. The two exchanged another round of probing attacks. Then they quickly pulled apart. The spirit weapon warned Baphomet. This woman is strong. She can switch weapons freely, and she is highly skilled with every one of them. Baphomet spoke in a low voice. You hid your identity and slipped in here to kill me, didn't you? Hunter Goblin paused for a moment, then smiled. You could put it that way. Someone hired me to take your life, but I have conditions when accepting a job. It depends on whether I like the target hunter or not. Honestly, it would be a waste to simply kill you. My grandmother once told me that living toys are much more fun than lifeless ones. So I think I'll take you home alive. After I cut off your limbs, I'll take very good care of you. And remember one more thing. Your future master is not Goblin. It's Peacemaker. With that, Peacemaker strode toward Baphomet. She fired several shots in a row, but Baphomet dodged them with ease. You are strong, but compared to that guy, you are nothing. As soon as he finished speaking, Baphomet dropped from above. His attack aimed straight at Peacemaker's head. Peacemaker leaped away and avoided the blow. When she looked closely, Baphomet's weapon had already transformed into an axe. His entire aura surged sharply. Seeing this, Peacemaker no longer dared to be careless. She drew her favored whip and launched her attack at Baphomet. But in Baphomet's eyes, a weapon like that was something only women would use. How could it possibly hurt him? With a few quick leaps, he dodged every attack. Then he slipped behind Peacemaker. His axe came down, and blood slowly slid along the blade. That's right. Peacemaker, who had believed herself to be so powerful, was wounded. She could not believe what had just happened. Then, she threw her head back and laughed. This won't do. You're my toy, so why are you being so disobedient? Do you want me to punish you properly? I really didn't want to do this. With that, Peacemaker pulled out a laser gun. After charging it, she fired. Baphomet stood in place without reacting at all. Too weak. Compared to Rave, she is not even worth comparing. In the next second, blood burst from Peacemaker's body. Peacemaker stared at the scene in disbelief. How did this man get in front of me just now? Did he tank the attack with his own body? What kind of joke is this? Until now, no A-rank hunter had ever withstood that shot. Anxiety, fear, and pain instantly shattered her will to fight. Baphomet showed no mercy at all and stepped directly onto Peacemaker's wound. He carefully checked the system prompt, but there was no mission notification. Looks like you're not an apostle. You're just a tool that pervert used. Peacemaker looked confused. Pervert? Do you mean Loki? Let me go. I'll tell you where Loki is. Please. Baphomet looked down at her with complete indifference. I don't want to. The moment she heard that, Peacemaker's heart sank into despair. Still, she used the last of her strength to stand up. She raised the laser cannon and began charging it again. Her eyes were filled with terror. I won't die. I absolutely won't die. But what awaited her was only Baphomet's guillotine strike. In a daze, she seemed to see the handsome man who had caused her grandmother's death long ago. Who is that man? And why does he look so much like Hunter Baphomet standing before me now? Peacemaker never learned, even in death, that it was Rave who had ended her grandmother's evil deeds in the past. And now, her own evil deeds had also been ended by Rave. Except this time, Rave's body had already been taken over by Baphomet. Inside the other door, Gravin and Ripper had been walking through a dark corridor for a long time. At last, they finally found an exit. When they pushed open the door, the scene inside shocked them both. Why is this another virtual space? And this time, it's inside an amusement park. Suddenly, a figure descended from above. Ha ha ha. Two little cuties finally came in. Let's have some fun together. As soon as it finished speaking, blinding light burst from the monster's body. In the next second, everything seemed to fall into silence, and the light vanished. Just as the two wondered what had happened, Ripper was suddenly dragged away by some unseen force. Gravin was about to fight back, but the surroundings fell into silence once again. When Ripper appeared again, she had already been locked inside a black cage. Finally, I have my actors. I've already lost interest in secretly watching the virtual stories created by humans. So now, you two will create an interesting story for me. Let's begin with a love story. Ripper was furious that she had become a monster's toy and kicked the cage with all her strength, but it did not move at all. Seeing that, Ripper tried to take a legendary weapon from her inventory, but her system seemed to be interfered with by something. The display became blurry and kept crackling with static. The monster spoke calmly. Ripper, I know you are a hunter who can use many different items, so I made a few little adjustments to your system. All right, let the performance begin. Once upon a time, in a certain village, there lived an ugly woman. Ripper instantly flew into a rage. Are you kidding me? The monster ignored her and continued the story. Time passed, and the ugly woman reached the age of marriage, but no one in the village wanted to marry her. There was only one exception. That person was the handsomest younger man in the village. But why would he fall for an ugly woman who even has a terrible temper? Maybe he only has a handsome face, but his brain actually isn't very bright. Until one day, the ugly woman grew jealous of the most beautiful woman in the world, meaning me, and was ultimately punished by being locked inside a birdcage. So, will this handsome younger man be able to save the ugly woman? Before the story could continue, Graven had already gripped his sword and started charging power. Then he rushed straight toward the monster, but the monster did not panic at all. It summoned dice that surrounded Graven completely. In the next second, countless lasers shot out from the dice. When the smoke cleared, Graven was completely unharmed, and the sword in his hand was still shining. With one flash step, he appeared in front of the monster again. He was about to attack, but countless dice appeared before him once more, firing another wave of lasers. This time, Graven could not react in time and took the hit head-on. His body dropped out of the smoke. Graven quickly adjusted his stance and prepared himself again. All kinds of weapons extended from the centers of the dice. But for Graven, they were still manageable. But in the next second, the dice vanished into thin air. Graven immediately sensed something was wrong. They've turned invisible. Their sound and movement disappeared completely. Suddenly, a flash of light shone behind Graven. Graven failed to react and was struck directly. Looking closely, it was actually a time bomb. With no time to hesitate, Graven immediately took off his coat and used it to slip out of danger. But before he could fully recover his stance, the monster's next attack came again. He did dodge the attack itself, but he was slammed to the ground by the invisible dice. Ripper, trapped inside the cage, could only watch anxiously. Just then, she suddenly remembered that Graven had glow bugs in his inventory. But just as she shouted, "Glow bugs," her mouth was sealed shut. Fortunately, Graven still heard her. He hurriedly opened his inventory and took out the glow bugs. But it was already too late. Countless dice rained down on Graven's body like a storm. Graven was smashed unconscious on the spot. In his dream, countless voices of criticism rang beside his ears. Too weak. At this rate, he probably won't ever reach S rank. Is there really no younger brother who can surpass his older brother? Hunter, Rave's younger brother, the youngest first-class hunter. That part is impressive, but he still isn't as good as his brother, right? Rave's figure slowly appeared. Why are you still standing in place? Is it because your goal, meaning me, is already dead? I heard dungeon warriors are different from ordinary hunters. They have specific growth conditions. Your growth condition was originally me, but I'm already gone. What a shame. Does that mean you won't be able to grow anymore? In the next instant, Baphomet's figure appeared and pierced straight through Rave's body. Why do you think you can't grow anymore? If having a target is the driving force that makes your power grow, then just find yourself a new target. I'm the one who killed Rave, so why not make me your goal instead? Hearing that, Graven suddenly understood. Lightning began gathering around him. In the next second, a massive storm of lightning descended from nowhere and blasted away every die pressing down on him. If that's how it is, then I'll make good use of you. From now on, my target is you, Baphomet.